my biggest thing is like, does he even have the motivation to do it the way he did it before? That's my fear with s1mple, because he's been out of the grind for so long and has, for the most of that time, not shown the interest to come back, in my opinion. So I have my doubts about it from that point of view. I think he'll still be, I'm not saying he'll be a failure, but SunPayus was pretty good. You know, there's the bar is not set low with what SunPayus was offering for Falcons.
The world is changing quickly. Shut up.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. Skin Place. Sell items now.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans across the globe, welcome to another episode of HLTV Confirmed. We only just got Striker, but then we lost him. His camera's frozen. We'll get him back in a moment. So this is like the real start, but it might not seem like a real start, but it is technically the real start. Quick shout out to... Yes, sorry, Prof.
This is the dramatic introduction of Striker when we unveil him as a gyatt vampire.
Yeah, gyatt admirer. Yeah, something along those lines. But shout out to the sponsors, Skin Place. If you're in the market and you want to sell some skins, head over to Skin Place and 1xBet. And I have a feeling Striker will be appearing in a box in a moment's time because I can see him. So I think Lucas will be shoving him in a box now. And then he'll be... There he is. Hey Striker.
Hello.
Enormous gyatt plus 1,000 aura points. Okay.
I have no idea what that means.
Well, we had Lucas do the titles this week, so he was using Zoomer language. Yes. Gyatt, do you know what gyatt means, Striker?
I Googled it, so now I do.
All right. That's all right. Now you're up to date. Fair enough. Okay. Thank you, Lucas, for doing the titles this week. Really appreciate it. Gentlemen, it's fucking October.
Yeah.
Bro.
Kind of crazy, huh?
Tell me about it. I'm feeling full panic mode for the awards, even though there's nothing to be panicking about. Like everything is under control. But also that realization of like, okay, there's
it's just around the corner. Yeah.
3 months and that's it. Feels crazy. Feels crazy that we are already here.
It is wild. The year has gone quite quickly. Striker's probably cracking some report right now. Striker, what are you working on? What leads? What can you tell us?
No leads. Nothing source-wise this time.
All right.
He says that, but then he's going to be like think of a player. Close your eyes. Think of a player. Older than that, younger.
Rhymes with.
I mean, look,
apparently-
we've heard all these rumors around Vitality and
Rhymes.
Falcons and whatever, and it's like all I can say is I've dug into that a little bit, that everybody tells me it's bullshit. So let's just say that.
Okay.
Name rhymes with pimple.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna
somebody's trolling all the Russian leakers effectively. So don't take it too seriously.
Oh, okay, that's fun. That is fun to see what comes out the other side. Now, look, the reason I bring up the fact that it is October is because the year has kind of gotten away from us a little bit, and I think it would help us with tonight's conversation greatly to put things in the context of this year and kind of where we're at. So we will be getting into, I guess, the Blast 4 finals because that's the leap-off point. But I feel like with tonight's conversation, I might want to intermingle and intertwine different talking points. It could be quite because when we talk about G2 and then there's the NiKo to Falcons and then the s1mple situation, those conversations might have to go hand in hand. So I'm gonna spiel some stuff and you guys tell me how far off the mark I am.
Okay.
And we can go from there. So last year ended right with only one major, and the second half of the year was basically the transition into CS2 and whatever CS2 had to offer. And the year
in retrospect, I feel like good idea to not have that second major. Probably.
Oh yeah, with how messy everything has been, for sure.
Yeah.
It's taken us a while to get to something that resembles a game that people are complaining about it quite frequently, but that's a different conversation. So competitively at the tail end of last year, FaZe were making a lot of finals, but Vitality won the fall finals and then the world finals, and then we went into the player break. And we came out of the player break with like the group stage, but we know a lot of teams use that as an event to get back into form. This is for Blast groups. And then we went into Katowice. And I think Spirit were on the radar for people, but the way that they won that event with like Donk going off was insane. And that was like our initial taste to 2024. That's how the year kicked off, right? I was like, holy shit, like, there's a new sheriff in town. And then from there, we went into the major, right? And NAVI ended up winning the major as like an outsider with more rounds lost than won. And they won the whole event. So that was like a shock and a surprise to everybody. So early on, we've had two big shocks. We had fucking Spirit with Donk just going absolutely nuclear, win Katowice straight into the major, where JL was the fucking MVP and NAVI won it. But FaZe was still making finals, right? So this is like adjacent to all these other storylines that are starting to pop off. FaZe was still continuing this form, and then they went to Chengdu, and then they picked up a trophy there. But compared to the two they just lost, you're like, well, they're still going to fucking hurt. And that's the year just starting. But that only takes us up to what? End of March?
April and March, yeah.
Yeah, so then we go into April. You're right. Chengdu is
That's
in
EPL after that,
mid-April.
no?
Yeah, we go. Then Mao's win
before
two
that.
back-to-back smaller events, right? And they're playing quality CS. They're really aggressive. They're in everybody's face. But at LAN, it seems to be a bit of an issue for them, especially in the playoffs, right? Then what do we have next? Dallas rolls around and fucking G2 win Dallas with Stewie standing in for HooXi.
What a tournament.
And it's like, this is just a fucking meme. Over Vitality, who at the tail end of last year, as we just referenced, with a team winning trophies, and they're yet to get a trophy, and they're losing to, that was their best opportunity yet, right? And they lose that one. And then we have this whole Stewie story arc and just the fucking nonsense, but that was essentially the beginning of the end for the next HooXi G2 roster at that point. Meanwhile, Mongols just took care of like some actual decent Counter-Strike household names at a smaller event, Yellow Compass. Right, they get rid of like Astralis and NIP. Nothing crazy, no big names, but they're like, yeah, we can deal with the kind of
stars of yesterday. I would feel like, which is still a pretty decent sculpt for sure.
Which for the Mongols is a great little talking point considering where they're from, right? So that they can actually hang with the bigger boys. Then we round out the season with Spirit winning the spring finals over NAVI. At that point, we're like, well, I guess Spirit are the best like team of the season, right? They won Katowice and they won this, and NAVI had only won the major, and since then it was pretty quiet for NAVI up until that spring final where they showed some good form to get into the final, right? And that was the best of 5 they lost. And then we come out of it, and there's fucking roster changes. Like, think about, we had the whole G2 situation. When was Device to in-game leading? At what point did that happen? That was like after the major?
When they failed the major, because they were at the major, right, with us on the podcast.
Right, yeah.
So that happened after the major. Well, yeah, during the major, right? But that was the catalyst for it. We had the G2 roster change. What else have we had? We've had another Astralis. This whole Liquid revamp, right? That was the player break. That all happened up to the point we're up to now. And then we started this season with Cologne, right? That's where Vitality versus Navi was in the final. Vitality finally
PwC,
getting
Navi win before
Yes,
that,
that's right.
with G2 making the final as well.
Yes, and yeah, that was surprising because G2 with the fresh roster change. Then into a smaller studio event for Bet Boom Dacha, that Spirit win, Bet Eternal Fire. They're like starting to simmer as a storyline within the year now. Back-to-back finals for them because they go into Pro League and they take on Navi and they lose in a actually decent best of 5 final. Then Navi in their 5th consecutive grand final against G2 just lose to G2 to Navi, just lose to G2. Navi's 5th consecutive grand final, lose to G2.
We got it.
Lots of words. We got there in the end, and that's where we're at. And we're in October, and all of that's happened, and we have all of those names plus all of the side storylines that are bubbling along with all this. Kind of crazy.
It's been a crazy year. Definitely, we had years in the past that was like parity, but I feel like this level of parity, unprecedented, probably has something to do with CS2, MR12, new game, peaker's advantage, playing more gunfights. All of these things I think help or take away from consistency overall. But I also think like a lot of the roster changes that happened, not a lot of teams actually improved with them. Obviously, we saw the collapse of Heroic and Ents at the end of last year, and I don't think all of those changes didn't amount to anything. Like nothing good came out of that. Cloud9 I completely forgot. Crazily enough, they did make the playoffs at the major.
Copenhagen, yeah.
Make of that what you want, right? So I think most of the teams didn't really improve. Like G2's signing of Nexa was a complete failure, as most of us thought it would be. So now Malb's coming in is an upgrade, obviously. So yeah, I think that's it's interesting. No one won back-to-back tournaments, maybe
other than Mouse won Pro League and Betboom Dacha.
Yeah, but I think Betboom Dacha is definitely a tournament that's like on the fringe of.
Yes,
it's hard to put into context with all of these other tournaments because like there was them in Spirit and then no other like top 5 team, so definitely wasn't on the same scale as the rest. So yeah, no real dominance from anyone, no real number 1 team. Like obviously there's always a number 1 team, there's always someone that is having the best results. That's just how it is. And I hate when people are like, oh, there is no number 1 team. There has to be, but there's also no like this team is the best in the world. I don't think at any point in this year we needed to say this team is the best in the world or this player is the best in the world, but people have been saying this all the time, even though it's obviously up to debate and it's not
always
been clear
changing
at any point through this year has it been clear who the best is. So like,
I mean, if anything, now is the first time that we're kind of getting there with Navi, right? So, I mean, because that's the only consistency we've seen.
But that could immediately change. Like that's the crazy thing, right? Like we have 4 events left for the rest of this year. We have Rio coming up, which is actually pretty stacked. We're going to talk about that later in terms of the names that are there. We then have Thunder Pick. I haven't looked into that too much. I know it's in Berlin. I'm looking at some of the names.
The team list is not finished either. So, but I don't think it's going to, it's a studio land kind of.
We'll see how that expands because there's some names there, but nothing too crazy.
But it's also even like, it's only who knows who's going to come out of the online stage. I mean, it could be none of the top teams even. So it seems it's not going to be the greatest maybe.
All right,
we'll see.
Count out Thunder Pick, but it's still on the docket potentially. It was still a lead-in for the major anyway. The Blast Premier World Finals, which is going to be in Singapore. That's only 8 teams, and then the major, and then that's the year done, right? And all of this stuff's like we've changed a couple of times. That's kind of why I went on that narrative a bit. Is like Vitality was strong coming into the year, but then they didn't even make a grand final until Dallas, where that's not true. They're in the Pro League grand final against Mouse.
You got slammed by Mouse.
True, that's true. It was 2-3 best of 5s.
That horrific game too. It's not a horrific game, but just on paper, losing to Stewie 2K, who hasn't played in forever, is unforgivable. And I'm glad they recovered. Obviously, I mean, what came out more recently is that like after that, Spinks was looking to leave the team, and I guess that's what losing to Stewie 2K does to a man who's like, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Well, that's it though, right? There was all those rumors of players going, and now we have rumors of players going elsewhere, like obviously with NiKo and Falcons. So this like final stretch, and I guess the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because it helps contextualize where we're at with G2's win over Navi at 4 finals. and then we can look at this final runway, because we're 2nd of October right now, and the major starts on the 30th of November. But before that, we have the fucking RMRs, right? So they're going to be hugely important as well. So essentially, right now, the path that we're on is one where teams have to be considering at these tournaments, you know, how much are they putting in? Obviously, they want to win, but how much are they putting in, and how much are they going to save for just around the corner when the major's there? Or the RMRs mainly. But I think now I guess we can jump into the main block, which was G2 winning. And mate, I can't remember the amount of times I feel that I've said, like, if NiKo and m0NESY play well, they can win like tournaments, right? And then there'd be people who would like tweet at me and stuff and be like, well, the tournaments they won, like Hunter was playing massive in the playoffs and JKS was there. I think they were talking like a Katowice or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think like this tournament, watching the moments for both NiKo and m0NESY, it's like that's exactly what I mean when I say if they pop off, they can win a tournament.
I mean, I'm going to be that guy now and say Mobs ended up being pretty much on par with NiKo in the end, you know, so it feels like it's still a trio, you know, but then the bottom was pretty low, you know, in terms of Snax and Hunter. So that's kind of how they made up for it.
I just feel like every time NiKo was on my screen, he was out in the middle of some like crazy moment where he needed to get 3 kills. And I was like, and most of the time he did. And it was like, fucking hell. Like that's not bad at all.
Eye-test-wise, I mean, looking at NiKo, this, especially in the final, but generally during the tournaments, felt like, you know, this is peak NiKo. You know, he's constantly pressuring everywhere, and he's like, you always have eyes on him, and you think like, okay, he can turn around at any point at this point, you know. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see him then in that form, and I was almost sad we couldn't give him the MVP, because it would have been such a good kind of finish for him to the tournament. But m0NESY was just too good, obviously.
It just always seemed like he had an idea of where he, like, I know that sounds crazy, but in Counter-Strike, there's like moments of hesitation. When the games I was watching of him playing, it didn't feel like there was any like moments of hesitation, which, you know, I think that's obviously a thing with confidence, but it's also how you're reading into the game and the expectations of what your opponents are doing and that type of stuff. So it was, and I guess there's the whole punching of the desk situation, which, you know, what did you guys make of that? What was your reactions when you saw that all taking shape?
I mean, as someone that did that quite a few times, it's funny that he got cut on the table. That was kind of funny.
Well,
like
he physically broke
shit. Those desks are pretty shit. It's like cardboard, right?
Is that just like an IKEA desk or something?
I can tell you those. You can go through them quite easily. So I went through a few in my days, and that's it. But no, completely deserved, I would say, after that round. The fact that it's just the fact that he kind of like whiffs the easiest kill that he had almost in the round. Like the first 3 kills are insanely hard. The m0NESY one was kind of timing, and the last one he does everything, and he has the kill and doesn't get it. It's like, fuck this shit. It's absolutely horrible. Obviously, there's so much shit that came around it. I enjoyed it. I think it's very human, and I enjoy the human part of Counter-Strike, you know.
I mean, it's obviously iconic now, especially, I mean, considering, like, imagine what would have happened if he didn't win that game, you know, like it would have been kind of like another NiKo moment, you know, like the Boston final and all that stuff, you know, it would have been another thing to kind of hold against him almost. And so the fact that he had that 1v3 after that, you know, to kind of recover, and that's what helps them, you know, come back from on Mirage towards the end and then win it in overtime, like that to me felt like, you know, it could have been a moment that could have broken NiKo all over again, and that fortunately didn't happen, because I think had he lost that game, it would have been pretty horrible for his mental for a while now, I would imagine, just because, you know, we all know how it went with the major. Obviously, this is nowhere near the same prestige, you know, in terms of winning the full final and all that, but, you know, considering that moment and them having them on the brink of economy, like he knows it's his fault almost, you know, even if it was a 1v5, you know, he knows it's his fault that he didn't win that, you know. So I said it before, like I'm just glad they won it for his sake, because it would have been terrible.
I don't know what happened to the table. Did they give it away in the end? I know
somebody said they got him to sign it or something, and I guess they did do something with it, but I don't know what.
Yeah, I sent a message out there, said if the table's available, we're taking it. We're putting it somewhere. We're starting the collection.
Making a museum
for the museum. We're starting the collection.
Okay.
So, you know,
someone's got to do it.
I mean, who else, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm kind of glad, by the way, just kind of something that maybe is a little bit under the radar. Now that like NiKo's had a tournament like this, and he's had a couple, obviously, he's kind of beating the allegations of him like just having that kind of uptick thanks to SnapTap, and just like that was kind of a big conversation for a while. And so it's pretty obvious that he can do things without any sort of help. So, so from that point of view, and I mean, obviously, he's also said that he hasn't used it anyway. So from that perspective, I'm just I'm glad for him.
Yeah, I mean, also the whole Falcons angle, and people thought, oh, if he's joining Falcons, even though it's interestingly, nothing new came from it. Even though the report was like he's going to sign tomorrow, no one said it. He's signed yet. I'm just saying this is kind of interesting. But there is an angle. It's like, oh, is he going to care about G2 now that he's leaving the team or whatever? Obviously he will. Like, I think for a player like him, and with the players that are in the team, he's not going to half-ass it until the end of the year. And obviously with how this year has gone, there's no reason why they would be like out of the question to win the major at the end of the year. And I even said it when this team came together. Yeah, Snax is kind of like a question mark in terms of IGLing and everything, but there's no reason why this team couldn't fluke a major, so to say. Like we saw it here. They can win a best of 5 against NAVI, who de facto the most consistent team in the world. You don't really, if you can do that in a best of 5 against NAVI, then you can probably beat any other team that can show up if you show up as they did.
Yeah, I think that's the key right there, right? This team is always like they've got a puncher's chance. So like at any moment, if the players are hot, which it's good and bad that can exist. Like it's a bit of a shame that just like mega skilled play. But if you have the right recipe of skilled players who can, you have to be massively round impactful, and that's what it feels like these like NiKo, Malbs, m0NESY all can be. But obviously, like if things don't go their way, they can just as easily get bomb out in groups like that. I think that's the thing with this team, right? Like I would hate for them to have a bad patch and see what that looks like. But so far this season, it's been good. We're not expecting, Prof, you said, no one said it's been signed, but we're operating under the assumption he's going to Falcons.
I'm just saying it's interesting that I haven't heard any like follow-ups on this whole.
But we are operating under the assumption that he's going to Falcons.
I mean, from what I heard, it did go through. So like it's not like it's the same situation as last year, where he just like turned around at the last minute.
Because I don't want Prof to derail us here, because this kind of plays in with the conversation to do with the s1mple news that came out. And I understand that s1mple's got nothing to do with BLAST, but s1mple, I guess, doesn't have anything to do with G2, but NiKo does. And NiKo has signed to the Falcons as well.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying something about like them going out in groups. To be fair, like G2 have never been a team that just bombs. Almost never, the only time if you look at this year, it's very rare for G2 to bomb.
There was a major that they...
I mean, of course, but that's like whatever. Now you're talking about a major that happened a year and a half ago or whatever.
It's not that long ago, you know?
Yeah, I know, but we've had 20 events since then where they made playoffs at like 18 of them or something, And the one that they have this year is Spring Final, which is when m0NESY wasn't there for the first series and half of the next or something, So like it's their only... Considering they are the team that they can be quite inconsistent. They are quite good at least always being in the playoffs, even if they maybe bomb a lot in the quarters.
Well, I guess if we just go with this iteration of the roster, there's only been that handful of events we've covered off, right? So
yeah,
as far as that's concerned, it's been, you just reminded me, the year started with Donk and I think Magic's as well, not being able to go to the spring groups.
Yeah.
And Baz and Hallie had to play, and then Donk went to his first event and owned. It's kind of crazy with that in the rear vision as well.
Kind of funny.
Yeah.
Maybe people were just looking at spring groups demos. It's like everybody just ignored Donk because he wasn't at the spring groups where you have any sort of tape, and then he just destroys everybody.
That's the secret. It was all on purpose. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So do we want to talk about what this s1mple news could be with NiKo in the picture, or do we want to save that for its own conversation?
I mean, we can kind of continue on the fall final conversation, and then we can maybe pivot into that, because I think it does need to be said that like G2 almost won despite Snax, especially considering how he looked in that final. Like it's harsh to say, and I was somebody who was defending Snax at the beginning for sure, because I just saw good things from his Gamer Legion stint, and obviously we weren't sure whether a lot of that was Ash creating the system and all that stuff. How much was that Snax's contribution and all that. But it, like in this final especially, he looked like a player, and everybody will remember that like one moment on B side where he just like puts himself in a position where he's like in the middle of, like just in front of B dark, and he has players coming from both ends, and he just doesn't know what to do, like he's completely stuck, frozen in a position. Like you don't see pros do that kind of move these days, like unless they're under immense pressure, So for him to look like an inexperienced player in such a moment was such a weird thing to see from a player like Snax, who's been around for this long amount of time and all that stuff. And I don't know if it does speak to the pressure on him. Like I would imagine there is definitely internal pressure on him, in terms of leadership. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that there are some gaps in G2 throughout these last few months. And also that individual performance, right? I mean, everybody was saying he's going to be better than HooXi, and I don't think he's necessarily confirmed that so far. So he was even like 0.49 KPR for this event. This event was almost like, when we were looking at it statistically, him and Hunter were not far from the Hunter and HooXi and Nexa in Dallas, where they won with Stewie. Those HooXi and Nexa and Stewie rather in Dallas when they won that. And that was also based on 3 people just like turning up at the same time.
Yeah, 3 people turning up and 2 just bottoming out.
Yeah, for the ride.
So I don't know. It's just, as much as I don't think it's all on him and all that, but like there were moments where you're just scratching your head at what he's doing.
He's clearly not comfortable, right?
Yeah, that is very clear.
Isn't it weird? Like, because when they played EWC, his stats weren't insane, but they weren't even bad. And also the eye test was like, this guy can frag and pull out some like. There
were some good clutches. Like there were smart plays like for sure. Yeah, you could see that Snax.
I really do think something broke in this team after that Mouse loss in Cologne in the playoffs, and the stats for Snax kind of follow that as well. I'm just looking back to it because I'm like thinking, am I gaslighting myself to thinking that he played better originally? But it is actually a huge difference. Like EWC 0.95, Blast Group 0.96, and then IM Cologne 0.9, and then after that EPL 13 maps 0.74 rating. That's fucking rough. That's like HooXi level, worse than HooXi level.
Yeah.
And overall he's like averaging 0.87 rating. This is like very bad. This is
Isn't he 30 maps in a row without a positive KD?
That was positive KD. Okay.
He had 0.00. Yeah, his last +1 was against Pain. That was EPL, I think. No, what is this? No, that's EWC. Cologne. Yeah, if you look before Mouse, there is like some green, some black, and some red, and then after that it's like red.
Yep. It's not. He doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look like he's making plays that an experienced player like him would make. But it's one of those things where if you just don't feel good in any of your spots, like there's no confidence, and you're trying to not bot out, you're probably more likely to bot out. And let me tell you, I'm almost like the best person to be talking about botting out. Like, I could make strats and call rounds, but if you're botting out, you're fucking botting out. So it's
from
not
the guy
that
good. Brought you the 1v1 against Freakazoid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's clear that it's got to be mentality as well, and I mean just the pressure that's on him. Just because there are also some rumors that they were also not very happy with him early on, like in terms of leadership and all that. So that's like all that together, like him feeling under pressure, maybe he doesn't deserve the spot, or he's trying to prove it, and then just putting too much pressure on himself as well. All that probably coming in combination with
Didn't he
him
say in an
obviously
interview
swapping
that he
around a lot.
doesn't care or something? Wasn't
I mean, what would you say? Like, would you say, no, I really care, like I really hate this? Like, would you really admit that to the audience that's like shitting on you on a daily basis, that you're just not?
Well, you got two techniques. You got two techniques. It to heart. You can either say you don't care and you do care, or you can say that you care and you do care. There's even 2 more options. There's saying that you care and not caring, and there's not caring and actually not caring. Yeah. So, but the 2 options I've presented are probably
always sounds like he's trolling. Like even in the winning interview, when they're like he just lifted the trophy, like his comments doesn't sound like it's him as a person saying this. It's like all going through the Snax meme machine.
I feel
that
like they just
memifies everything that he says in English. And this is nothing like against him, but this is just how he expresses himself in English, or he never sounds serious. So I couldn't imagine him being like, yeah, this is really getting to me. Like, it's a hard position here in G2. There's a lot of, like, I can't even imagine this coming out of his mouth.
Well, in a trolly way, I could see it possible. Look, guys, I feel like G2 just need their fifth. It could be like a meat puppet. It doesn't. As long as occasionally it gets a kill, it's probably. This is and this isn't a dig at Snax or anything. This is just the way that G2 works. Like it was the same with HooXi. Just make sure that there's a fifth body in the server. See which manager wants to play that day, and fucking get stuck
I was thinking the same. It's kind of like it only proves that that combination can probably win with anybody next to them. Like obviously, I don't think Hunter played as badly as that, obviously, but he didn't have a good event for a lot of that time. He had. Here's how we make money in esports, Striker. Fucking cracked it. You get a team that's good enough that they can play 4v5. And then like rich guys who want to live out the dream of playing Counter-Strike at the highest level pay G2 to play for the team, and they get to be the fifth. Yeah, they get to be the fifth, and we just keep running that experiment, and we can get. So it's like a Red Bull situation with Max Verstappen. They could, whatever you put alongside him, they're still gonna win the championship, because he's so good, or whatever. Now, maybe for people.
You killed it with the Formula One reference, but I think I followed along. Someone said overdrive in chat. It bang on.
There you go.
I mean, next year there's so many tournaments. You might as well, YOLO some, and that's it. Just get a sub. If they can win with fucking Stewie, then just be like a level 9 on Face It.
Yeah, I mean, it is just a massive testament to Modesty and NiKo, obviously, because they were there for the Dallas one as well. Not just in this case, also Malbs, of course. I mean, his peaks are pretty insane, and the level of impact he can have in a game is crazy. Of course, he also has the lows, where he just like his opening plays don't work out, and then he just doesn't do anything in round and all that. But like the ceiling that this team has on a skill level with those three is insane. And then Hunter, ended up having a good final to kind of complement them as well. So it's not like it was just those three turning up, like taking turns. So it's just like it is really a testament to how far you can get off of individuals alone.
But here's the thing, right? Like if we had the horses that we've discussed, which are the Counter-Strike teams, the good ones, like G2 would still be the one that I swear would have some of the lower odds out of the elite, just because I don't feel like they have I think they have the ability to win, but I don't think they have the consistency to win.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's been proven for the last two. It's been proven for the last 2 years. Like obviously they had the peaks in Katowice and Cologne, but other than that, they made like one more final and then always bombed out semis, quarters. And then this year's been the same, right? I mean, they won kind of two, like I don't want to say fluke because it's not really, like they've still been pretty consistent outside of that, but they won 2 trophies. And have they even made, they made EWC final, right?
Yeah.
Right after they brought in mobs. So, and Snax. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's always been kind of the G2 mantra that they can win tournaments. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the NiKo phase almost, where, they had after the Guardian and Olaf's kind of mini era that they had, like after those versions of FaZe after that, they always had the ceiling to win trophies, but they never really had the consistency to. So that's, I don't know, it just follows NiKo, I guess.
Yeah, I think, well, we can probably migrate off of
just
G2
wanted to
yes.
2 things I wanted to mention. Still talking about G2, which we never talk about.
We never talk about G2.
There's this Reddit thread, and I just wanted your opinions on would this be possible with HooXi instead of Snax?
Like if we weren't talking about, if we were just transplanting people into these conversations with none of the residue the baggage that exists between people, then I think the answer to that question would probably be yes. But I think because human beings are a thing and the way that we function, there's probably, a lot of stuff with the relationship between those guys of why it wasn't working and why they had to make that change anyway. So let's go with no.
All right.
I gave both answers.
You got away with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat there. I'm in the same boat there for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how. Like, I know that a lot has been made about kind of the atmosphere within G2 and how much that had to do with HooXi leaving. I don't think that was the only factor that played into it. You know, obviously, performances were also not that great, and then the atmosphere just becomes a like the tipping point or whatever. So I don't know how bad it got from that perspective. From like, I haven't spoken to anybody who would have told me that it got so bad that they just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I can't really speak to that. But I mean, we said it before. It feels like you could almost transplant anybody into that position, and they would have the capability to win, even if maybe they wouldn't have won in this case or whatever. They would still have capability to win.
Yeah. The other thing I just wanted to mention is like m0NESY MVP, because we didn't speak about that in particular, but I'm happy for the #1 player of the year race that he got another MVP. This is Striker is fucking dying in advance, but I'm happy that it's not a NiKo, because like starting this season after the summer, NiKo was their best player for a few tournaments. But now that they won, it's m0NESY again, just like it was in Dallas. So I think that's a good sign for his race for the #1. Even though obviously his 2 MVPs not from the greatest tournaments, like compared to like
don't the 3
Cologne
MVPs at the moment, like it would be JL from the major, Donk from Katowice,
and
Zywo from Cologne. Those are the top 3 right now.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's in terms of importance for sure. I think Zywo in Cologne, well, leading into the final, he was good. Obviously, he was on a kind of crazy level, and then didn't have the best final to complement it, but still, yeah.
Yeah, but just a cool storyline, and I think as you kind of preface this whole thing, we're coming towards the end of the year, and so everything that happens, without a doubt, starts a conversation. It's like, is this going to be the best team now because of this? Is he going to be #1 player because of this that just happened? Which I think is very, very fun.
I actually mistook like one Zywo MVP for another. It was the Pro League one I was talking about. He was great in that Cologne final.
Yeah. Sorry, I just clicked in with what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was just like, I was checking, like something didn't sound right about what I said, and I was that's what.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and there's another thing to reflect on is this is the end of the partner leagues, right? Only a couple more events until we see their new strategies going forward. There will be even more events next year than the ones that we listed off previously. Probably double the amount, I would imagine. Probably double the amount of events. So I think there's going to be a few things next year which are going to be much different. And I was sitting there when I was watching G2 play or FaZe play throughout the week, at Liquid play as well. There's certain teams that you could just like. This is why the idea of like a partner league would be great, is if you could always guarantee that those teams would play the exciting CS that they play, because watching those teams play is very exciting. Like you're always getting clutch CS or big multi-kill moment Counter-Strike, and that's the most entertaining type of Counter-Strike.
I mean, you're talking about the big four, or you're extending that to further? Big four, I mean, historically, so that would be like Vitality, NAVI, FaZe, G2,
Yeah, I think who'd you say? Vitality,
NAVI, FaZe, G2 would have been the kind of like the big. Okay.
Liquid,
I mean, of course, at the moment, but I mean, kind of like the teams that have historically kind of always delivered that level of CS,
Sure. Well, yeah, I guess in different ways. Like NAVI had the period of being very slow. But all I'm saying is like type of Counter-Strike that is highlight heavy and like retake heavy and clutch heavy. That's exciting CS. That's CS that you want to show to your grandma, and she might get a kick out of it, like of the action that's going on. Right. Whereas, so there are some teams who play some CS that is not super exciting, but it's fair enough. Like it is a competition after all, and you should be doing whatever is required to win, other than cheating, guys. That statement definitely has lines. Do we want to talk about the I guess the protest? Or are we going to do that as part of the Astralis debut?
Sure. I mean, we can switch into that for both of the protest, right? I mean, we can kind of circle back.
We don't have any specific, like we can talk about NAVI next, or we can talk about Astralis and talk about this. All the same to me, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I don't really have a lot to say about NAVI.
Same.
They made it to another final. They're probably pretty burnt out, I would imagine. And if they're also like, obviously they want to win. and they didn't. So that sucks. Like, that's a bummer. But otherwise, yeah, they played another grand final and they lost. They still played good Counter-Strike. There were some moments where things weren't looking great, but
in the final, I think that was clear that it wasn't quite the same Navi that we'd seen in some of these finals
well,
before.
Even with Pro League, it wasn't their best CS, right?
Yeah,
like Eternal
that's
Fire
fair.
series went the distance.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So they're playing a high level of CS at the moment when it's not necessarily the best individual level of CS potentially.
Right. Yep.
Or maybe they're not playing the best team CS and they're playing a bit better individually. Like you could probably have that conversation about different rounds or different periods.
I think you can see on different maps that like some players did not show up. Like Bit, I think on the first map was horrible. Then Wonderful, even though he had that insanely stupid 1v2 that I still don't understand how that happened. Overall had a pretty bad grand final. And I think that shows some shortcomings that Navi has, and I think it's mostly been these two players. Like Ima has been criticized a lot, but I think Ima and JL overall pretty consistent. That being said, what we also did not see in this grand final is any JL rounds. There is no JL rounds in this game.
Yeah.
Which realistically could have, if he pulled out one or two of those, maybe could have shifted the map the other way, and maybe it could have been a Navi game. In the end, but we saw.
I mean, to be fair, he still had a good final. He still had a good final, so it's not like he didn't show up or anything. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, when they won, usually.
But man, you can see how much respect these teams are giving in the veto, or the games that they're trying to play in the veto, right? Like Eternal Fire, when they played Navi, they removed. What did they remove? They removed Mirage, right? And I think G2. What map did G2
Anubis?
They removed Anubis, yeah. So there's risks that are getting taken by teams against Navi, and like people not making it like so straightforward in that element of the game.
I mean, it helps that like they have both the Vertigo permaban, right? So that's kind of what allows them to do that.
The flex, of course, yeah. But this is the thing. Like that's how much. Like Navi are the type of team, in my opinion, who they have no reason to play the games in the veto, like because they could also float Vertigo, right? Like they don't need to ban it. So, well, they do need to ban it. But
I guess,
what I'm saying is,
if you're in a position where you're the favorite, maybe you don't.
Yeah, they don't take those risks.
The one that's, exactly. You're going to be the one who's playing it more safe.
Okay, that was. I don't know. Like I think that. The thing is, right now, if I was putting myself in Navi's shoes with the back-to-back like events which they've been in since we've returned from the break, which we were just covering off at the start, right? With where you're at right now, you get a couple of weeks off, and then not even that. You don't even get a couple of weeks off. You get a couple of days off. Now you have to go to Rio, and that's a long travel event. So you want to make sure as well that you're kind of not. I don't know. Like it's hard. I don't know how they're meant to manage it. They're going to
be fine after that though, because that's like they have like a 2-week break until World Finals. So I think, and then they have another 2-week break before the RMR. So there's a good staggering of the events after that. That's, I think, I would say, like, if I was to make a prediction, I know we're going to get there, that based on these last two events, I would be surprised if Navi made the final again, because realistically they probably weren't supposed to, even in this case. I mean, that FaZe game, it was just a massive comeback, and that like wonderful 1v2 that like almost didn't happen, that allowed them to do that. Realistically, they shouldn't have been in that final. They were two rounds away from not. And then the way that they looked against G2, and then the way that they looked against Eternal Fire. And a lot of these games, there's clearly weaknesses. I don't know if it's fatigue or what it is exactly. That's like, for them to extend it by another event, it would be almost surprising at this point.
Yeah, well, that'll come up, and I'll talk a little bit later. All right, let's get into the juicy stuff. Let's get into the drama, which is the bit that most people love. So, Striker, you were getting very passionate, maybe the most passionate we've ever seen you on HLTV.
I still was after that, like throughout like all this stuff,
riled up. Now, you were going off regarding this whole situation with BLAST and the rules that we may or may not necessarily agree with, but the fact that they weren't being upheld or applied fairly. And BLAST said that they were going to investigate it further. Astralis felt like they doubled down on the situation. The in-game leaders of all of the teams besides Spirit, Chopper didn't get the message in time, didn't go to the media day and do the photos. They were unfit for the media day, which is fair enough. I think at Flamesy said something along the lines of, if a player's sick, you got to let them rest before they play, which is fair enough. It's hard to argue with that. And then the players released a joint statement. I think it was
including Chopper,
yeah, regarding the situation. Rain put out like a fucking comment that was pretty salacious, I thought.
Yeah.
It was like, it doesn't look good for Blast going into next year. It's like,
I mean, we're going to get into that as well. I mean,
we're into it right now.
It's kind of crazy to me that like that statement, especially coming from FaZe, you have to realize that means something, because FaZe are one of the very few teams who have pretty much freedom to pick whatever events they want to go to. It's not controlled by the organization.
Side.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not been in control of the organization particularly. So, I mean, obviously they are partnered and all that stuff, and there are some obligations that come with that in terms of them going to all the ESL events, and at least, them choosing the ESL events. But there are still of those events where they can skip them if they want to, and that seems to be up to the players. So for Rain to come out and say like Blast have fucked up, and there's a world where like threatening almost that they would just not go to their events after this, that it's going to be interesting to look at next year and what their choices are going to be event wise because of this. Because realistically, I mean, Blast did not make any friends with this decision apart from in Astralis, obviously, and you have to wonder how much it's going to impact them.
This is the quote just for people, because some people maybe didn't catch it.
Right.
He said, this was an interview from the media day and just a little bit from it. Looking at all the different times they've enforced their rules and made sure that teams have to play with coaches, I think that stuff, the statement, is complete bullshit. I think Blast isn't making a good picture of themselves for next year when teams have to choose events. And I think they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing this. It's just bad, to be honest.
Yep.
Pretty interesting to have a player voicing that type of opinion, really.
I mean, FaZe have always been the type of team that would just have anything that has to be aired, it's going to be aired through the players. It's never really going to be the org or anything like that that's going to talk about it, because I mean, there's effectively no setup around the team really, too much that's like structured, like big structure or anything. So that's always funny when you think about FaZe. It was the case even like dating back to the NiKo times and all that. So, but that's what I'm saying, like especially when FaZe were the team who got kind of fucked by one of those situations where they were allowed conflict, that they weren't allowed conflict. Literally, as he was in the media day, they told him he can't play anymore because of a situation that they caused themselves, because like Blast copied rosters from the world final where config was a stand-in for heroic, and so he ended up being copied over to the roster for the spring groups, and that resulted in FaZe not being able to use it because he's submitted for another team, which Blast did, on their own, so like this, like that whole situation was a horrible handling of that as well, because I mean they allowed it, then teams complained and they withdrew it. This time they allowed something, teams complained and complained way more than they did in the FaZe situation, and they didn't do anything about it, and they're trying to say as if these situations are in any way different. So it's crazy to me that they were able to stand by that decision and even be so arrogant as to say that there's no, like, they've been given no reason to doubt Astralis' statement. And by the way, the literally the same day or the day after Astralis get eliminated, they come out with a statement that they have been given contradicting opinions or contradicting statements from the player representation and the team, and so they're passing on the case to ESIC. Like, excuse me, you didn't see that the 2 days before, however many, 5 days before the event, when the literal agent of the player said the guy is fine and fully healthy? Like, you didn't come to that conclusion that you're having two different statements from the player or his representation and the team itself? Like, you really had to wait until they're eliminated in the last place, where you're like, okay, I mean, they didn't do anything at the event, so no harm, right? No, I mean, it's insane that they're allowing to do that. And like, another fucking layer to this is the interview with Dust2DK from Nikolai Nihom, where he said, like, doesn't it say a lot that, you know, the player is not talking anymore and like the representation is not talking anymore? Doesn't it mean that, isn't it obvious that we came to an agreement, and it's like, there's no harm done? And then that this comes out from Blast afterwards, you know, where they're being given two different statements from those two teams. So it's obvious what happened to anybody who can see all the evidence. Like, it's obvious that this was a massive mishandling of the situation, and it's crazy that it went through after all the hoopla that was made about it.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things that you touched on there that stand out. One is right the double standard, which I think is just the key thing in competition. It can't be like that, and the unfortunate nature of what that ties into of the business relationship between the two companies of Once Upon a Time. So like it all just looks bad, and then the fact that they do the ESIC statement after the fact saying they're going to pass this on, it's like almost a spit in our face.
Yeah.
Really. You know,
And
that's
especially like
kinda what that
it
feels
speaks.
like.
It also speaks to how unwilling they are to make that call. And I think that even
But
that
it's not even
raises
E6's call to
more-
make, is it?
Well, I mean, I guess they are the. I mean, they are the integrity commission,
but-
right? I mean, they are partnered with BLAST. They are supposed to be the ones handling situations like this. You know, where there's been, you know, whatever it may be. You know, whether it's going to be cheating or anything else that is against the rules. You know, effectively. It still is within ESIC to make some sort of a call like this. But the problem I have is, like, it seems like they're pawning off the responsibility, even though they have all the evidence that they would possibly need in their hands. And if they don't, they can just ask the player. And if he says no, I was never sick, then you have literally everything that you ever need to realize that.
But I mean,
the situation was misrepresented or anything like that.
Funnily enough, ESIC never did this even when the coach bug thing happened. Famously, they never went to players and asked, like, did you know? This was never a part of the questioning because for some reason we just presumed that they would say that they didn't. So we didn't need to check if, like, you know, it didn't even make sense. Like, oh, we're not doing police interrogation, therefore we don't need to ask these questions. But for me, it makes no sense. So, like, in theory, I don't think like pawning it off to ESIC is bad as a concept, but the problem is that we know how these things go, so nothing's going to come of it. So it's just kind of washing your hands and being like, yeah,
it's a nothing statement.
I mean,
it's
that's
like
the
just for
thing.
headlines, bro.
Of course, but I mean, even if like the worst that ESIC has done to any of these partner teams has been like the 100,000 fine to Astralis for the Hunden situation, which was kind of like the worst that they've done. And I feel like they cannot get away with just a fine. Like, really, if it's just a fine, even if they end up
just
saying
pay the fine.
But it's irrelevant, you know, like, because of how egregious this situation is and how clearly they were misrepresenting what happened with Bro, just basically saying he's unfit to play. You know, that can mean a million different things, and that just triggering an emergence. Like, obviously the onus is also on BLAST for allowing this to happen and not, you know, doing their due diligence and finding out what unfit to play actually means, you know, assuming they didn't. Maybe they did and they just allowed it anyway. Like, I'm not saying that's completely out of the question either, you know, that there was a backroom deal, but that's the problem with lack of transparency about this. And that's the problem with, you know, like, let's say that, just as a hypothetical, I'm not saying there was one, but let's say there was a backroom deal where BLAST and Astralis, even if it's like after the fact, you know, let's say BLAST only realized after they allowed it that what the situation was, and from all the evidence that was put forth, they realized they fucked up or they didn't do their diligence or Astralis misrepresented the situation, and then just decided, like, we cannot, like, for PR sake, like, we cannot back out of this. Like, at that point, then they cannot even make the call themselves because they already had the deal with Astralis in the first place, you know. So then to go back on it would kind of be weird. So that could be one reason why they would pawn it off to some external party to decide what to do with it, because we're too involved with what happened, you know. So, like, it's just ridiculous that we can't have these questions in the first place, and we are not sure what exactly happened with Astralis and BLAST, because it could be both. Like, it could be just as bad on both parties, realistically. Like, it could be a horrible decision from BLAST in the first place as well.
Wow.
I have to say just one thing, like, obviously, whatever went down and what the reason for this, we probably will never know. But
never know.
Astralis, BLAST would certainly want Astralis to be there and play in the arena. This is for sure. Like, doesn't mean that they would maliciously try to make that happen, but also just Astralis has just fucked BLAST and the fall finals in Copenhagen overall by being trash for the last 3 years and never doing anything. Like, this is the tournament that so much relied actually on them to be decent, to bring the crowds in and everything, and they have failed time and time again. So we saw the downsizing for this year's event, and, like, who knows what's going to happen next year. I do presume there will be some Copenhagen in the mix, but you know,
I'm not so
obviously
sure that that's a given now.
The interest has been going down quite a bit, and I think Blast definitely have nothing to be thankful for Astralis, considering they grabbed so much of the fan base but never delivered by actually showing up.
Yeah.
And so it just made everything else like small but uninteresting. Just kind of funny in some ways.
Well, what did you guys think of the overall experience? As a viewer, nothing really changes.
I mean,
you could definitely see that was a smaller event. Like, it didn't feel as polished. It felt.
They've just been good at hiding it the last couple of years, though, in the Royal Arena, though, right?
Yeah, but there was also a lot more people.
Yeah,
last year.
I don't think Royal Arena was bad at any point. It was just like they closed off the top, so it kind of looked fairly full anyway. I don't think that's anything bad to do. I mean, obviously, like, okay, you're not always going to fill out the arena, but you're going to do your best for it to be a good atmosphere anyway. So I don't really have a problem with that that part of it, you know, because it's still a good, whatever it is, like the lower rung, maybe like 5,000-ish people, 5 to 7, I think, is what I remember was told to me at some point for some of those finals, you know. And then, like, we saw what the full Royal Arena looks like in Copenhagen, you know, but with the major, I mean. So I don't really have a problem with that, but it's more like they're also partly owned by the government, and, you know, it's obviously good for them if they can fill out the arena, if they can, you know, give the Danish audience what they want, and they haven't been able to do that. So I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I saw some of the stuff on Reddit of people having issues with no beer and they couldn't get back in.
That's egregious. No beer at 7:30. What the hell?
I think not being able to do re-entry on long days is one of the reasons, like, that it's kind of tough running an event that goes for that long in an environment like we can do, like in a theater. Imagine if you had re-entry in a theater, and the theater staff would have to be fucking, like, you have to pay for that. That's part of the things you look at when you're hiring a venue.
Wasn't that the case in Paris for the major as well?
I heard something about that, but I'm not sure if it was
I think
true.
like if you didn't have like some like VIP or whatever, you couldn't re-enter. And it's kind of a venue technicality. It's not something you can just be like, oh no, we actually want this. It's pretty.
It's like safety or something.
Yeah, then you need to have like so many more people like checking everything all the time.
A lot of the time, it's just money, though, boys. If you had enough money, you can throw money at the problem.
But that's the thing. Like, if you have such a small venue, then the reason why you're doing it is to save money, not to like fucking spend the same amount of money that you spend for the Royal Arena and just have a smaller venue. That doesn't, you know, some of these things don't make sense. But yeah, it is what it is. Do you want to talk about Astralis? Because the good thing about all of this is that, as Device said, karma is real. He didn't say that, but he did mention karma in that exit interview. So,
and he said it in a way where, like, it seemed like he knew what he was saying. Like, he wasn't just, you know, making off remarks or anything like that. It was like, it seemed fairly pointed. So that was kind of a fun part of it.
I mean,
yeah, the thing is, you go into an event like this, everybody's tough to beat. So it's like, what were the overall expectations? We did I
mean, that's the fact that they got close to Spirit, I think, was good.
Well, it says something about Spirit, doesn't it?
Honestly,
I mean,
if Spirit didn't win this fucking game, we'd be fucking furious. We'd be fucking fuming.
Everybody would be furious.
We'd be calling for Chopper's head, for fucking Donk to go to Falcons, just like fucking destroy the whole project, like this band, you know. So, but they managed to do that.
Considering their opening game was a 13-0 loss to Vitality, like, I like the way that Apex was like taunting them and stuff.
Yeah,
like, it's 0, and then they got 4 rounds on the next map, and like Apex, like he had a bone to pick, right?
Yeah, that's gonna be in the next, like, that picture is gonna be in the next book for sure. Like, that's amazing, because he like looked straight down the lens of like Maku's lens, you know, for the picture, which is like amazing. Like, it's such good showmanship from Apex.
Yeah, you got to be an entertainer as well as a player, boys. Well, you don't have to be.
I mean, I from a personal standpoint, I have to say, it felt so fucking good for them to get so destroyed in that opening game, and then it felt so fucking bad when I saw that they could win a game. And I will say this again, I have nothing against the players. I don't think they had anything to do with the situation. I don't think it was their fault that Astralis got Kaden in or anything like that. They're just there to play and all that. So I'm not going to say, like, I don't think it's anything against the players, but it just serves the organization.
Sounds like it's against.
Yeah, I mean,
it really is not. It seriously is not.
It's another case of just Astralis making things as difficult as possible for themselves.
Their players. Like, for their players, even, like, actively putting so much fucking pressure on the team for the event. It's like you're setting them up for failure.
Yeah, but they probably thought nothing was going to happen because like they just get away.
Yeah, it's going to stay
But
behind.
they don't get away with stuff. They actually don't get away with stuff
never get
anymore.
away with
So I don't know what they're thinking. And it's like, as if this team needs any more negative like PR, considering that everything that happened between Astralis and Heroic for years, and the most recent like interpersonal thing between the Heroic players that are now reuniting. Like, we don't need this shit. We don't need, no one needs this. And then on top of that, I guess Device was sick, they said.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
Which helped him have the worst tournament of 10 years.
Yeah.
Which is actually crazy. That's
tough.
actually crazy.
But they only played 2 matches, and both those matches were against decent teams. So it's like, what am I meant to actually extrapolate from this? I can take the drama, right? I can't even really get a good look at how they're going to work. Yeah,
I would say one thing about the player play. We saw maybe too much double upping from them. It felt like Kaden's a bit too is going to be a bit too reliant on trying to bring that out as much as possible, because we even saw it on T side a couple of times where like I was like, come on, like you've given up the op to Device. Maybe this is not the best thing to do. So from that, I am not convinced that Kaden's going to have such an easy time adapting to the new roles, you know.
It might just be like an early days thing, right?
Because it could be.
He's also been out of the server for a while.
For sure. Like it could be down to lack of time. You know, you just don't have the playbook. You just want to try something, you know, that's fairly uncommon these days, you know, for people to bring out double ops too much. And you are a decent opera. Like, it's not like you're just a secondary opera who just wants to big it up. Yeah. So it's like, I can't blame him, but I'm just saying it doesn't look good in terms of his adaptation to the new roles and how much he's going to fit in those moving on. We'll see, of course. I mean, it is just one event after a week of practice.
They have a good runway, right? So they get these next couple of days of practice. They go to Rio. They probably get a lot of practice in while at the tournament as well, right? Like off of match days. If they stay the whole time, I don't know. If they stay the whole time, they can just be prac partners for the other teams that are there.
Yeah.
Then they go to the World Finals. Then they're going to go to the RMRs, right? So they actually have a really good runway. But right now, it's impossible to predict whether it'll be good or it's bad. Like, the early signs, I don't think, are an indication of what's going to be possible. But the same question marks can still exist. You know, how is it going to go as a rifler in these type of spots? What is the overall team dynamic going to look like? You can look at those general things, but I don't think from this event you can take away too much other than the fact that, it is another shit way for an Astralis team to start off proceedings. Like, it's like under a bad cloud. But one thing that I avoided tweeting, because I just try not to tweet these days, what's the point? People just act like apes in your replies. So you don't tweet, boys. You just don't say anything. Fuck it.
At least don't reply to people.
You gotta, set and forget. But one thing I was thinking was, like, you don't want to unite Cadian and Stown under controversy. That's where they tend to come together and do their best work. That's where they get their like superpowers from, or their, I guess, supervillain powers. I don't. Either way, right? Like they get charged up by the global hate. So people got to be careful. You might make them too strong.
I mean, I don't know about that. It's not like Stown is a guy known for being amazing under pressure. So I don't think.
But Cadian is, and then Cadian insulates them in the Brotherhood. Cadian needs the hate to be fueled, so then he can protect them all.
Right. Yeah. By the way, like what you said about World Final, I was going to get to that earlier when I was saying like it cannot just end with a fine. I mean, BLAST threatened like pulling World Final qualification when they were talking about like handing it off to ESIC or even before that. And
here he is. He's back.
I'm just saying, for them to throw that out, and if they don't do that, even if something comes out that like they got 100% confirmation, whatever, like if there's supposed to be a fine to Astralis or whatever like that, I think that's going to be even bigger detriment to BLAST that they didn't have the balls to pull the qualification, regardless of not actually having an effect on the qualification, by the way, because I think it was because Falcons didn't. I think because Falcons got eliminated last, that's why the spot went to Astralis. Like it was decided to go to Astralis. I would have to check again. I actually didn't look into the point situation, but it made sense to me.
Just be happy it's not OG that's there, man.
I mean that is true.
Like, fuck, the amount of times we had OG slip into a fucking World Finals because they did well in the group stage that no one gives a fuck about. But look, this shit with Astralis, like when it was happening, I was like, nothing's going to happen. And then the players did like a little mini strike thing, which I think was good. I think it was quite tactful, and I think it was funny. I think it was essentially grabbing the rules and throwing them in Blast's face and saying, like, look, if you're gonna be dicks about this, like, well, we can just, you know, make a bit of a. It was more of a protest, I would say, and it wasn't anything else.
Yeah, you can also see how, you know, that can set a precedent for the future, you know, where they finally come together and do something about it, because obviously the CSPP hasn't existed for a long time, and even before that it was pretty damn bad at doing its job and trying to do this for exactly cases like this, you know, where players need to rise up to protest something or to threaten a walkout or anything like that. And obviously, you know, this is the first time we saw anything like that since like 2020, when that happened for around the situation with the voice comms and stuff, you know, where they just took a stand and said they would not turn up to the games if you know, if they keep having admins or like recording of the voice comms and stuff. So like for that to happen for the first time, and it is 4 years, right? It was 2020 when this happened, I think.
It was definitely online.
It's 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, one of those years. I can't remember now. I think it was 2020. So for that to happen I think it's a good thing that, you know, players now understand that they have that option if they feel strongly enough about something. And obviously this was a strong enough case where they wanted to make their voices heard, you know. It's not like I would want players to just like attempt walkouts on every minor issue, you know, but for the cases where
worthwhile, yeah.
Of course, like for the cases where it's worthwhile, it's good that somebody was working hard enough behind the scenes, you know, out of these guys. I know, I mean, Kerrigan, Twist, all these guys, I'm sure had a lot to do with it. You know, Kerrigan was eventually the person who sent over the statement, and I guess he was probably the one who wrote it, or at least who was in charge of it. So these guys should be role models for the players, and they should be looked up to in terms of that being an option in the future. And, you know, maybe that is being kind of a basis for a new functional players association.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably the best way for them to represent themselves, but there'll become a time where, you know, the values of the top teams doesn't necessarily match that of the lower team. But, you know, something is better than nothing. I won't be a complete doomer, but someone who I want to be a doomer, Prof, when Spirit was mentioned before.
Can I just say something on this?
Of course you may.
Thank you very much. There's also a comment in Twitch chat saying, Josh darn it, 404. Can Striker please trim that bit of microphone fluff off his microphone? I'm sat here staring, and I saw it now, and I cannot unsee it, so I completely agree with this thing. I wanted to just say on this whole protest thing, first of all, people in the world in general, the concept of protests is very much not understood. And people get super mad whenever someone protests about something because like they're getting like mildly inconvened. And they're like, this is stupid. You should never do this. And now I hate you even more. And I will, instead of saving the whales, kill all the whales or whatever. Okay. This general sentiment that people have. So even when this happened, people were getting super annoyed. It's like, oh, what are all these snowflake IGLs? It's like, what are they doing? There's a part of the community that was like acting like this, which is hilarious. But I think what is good is that they found...
You mean the part of community, Prof, who consumes all this entertainment for free?
Yeah, we don't have to go and like hating everyone.
Can't we?
Let's not. We are people that, because people that watch this, you know what this is like a third digression, but you know when people go on podcasts and then like hate people, like none of these people that we're hating are watching the podcast. There's all the people that are watching this are like very intelligent, smart, beautiful, have like great partners, are happy about their life and everything, can like deadlift 3 times their body weight and everything. So there's no point in getting like mad at people that are not even listening to
Fair enough. Saying. It's like believing in Santa Claus, you know?
I'm not sure what you think. I mean, Santa Claus is real, so... But I wanted to say it's nice that the IGLs, like they found, not IGLs, but players in general, found a way to like kind of disrupt things and make a fuss without completely derailing, like, oh, we're going to boycott the whole tournament. You know, there's a middle ground where you can do something to raise awareness and get people talking about it without destroying everything and being like, no, we're not playing the games.
Well, obviously didn't do enough though, did it, Prof? They didn't get what they wanted.
I think yes and no. Yes and no. I think this is like a fair thing. I don't think we need to like for everything just kill all the whales or whatever.
I mean, I will say though, like it's especially because the partner stuff is going to go away. I mean, from what I know, the Blast and the players or the team organizations have a non-disparagement clause, so they cannot technically say anything against the tournament, without having fearing for fines and all that stuff.
Striker, say it again for the people in the back. Repeat it and explain it. What does that mean?
I mean, it means they should not speak out against the tournament organizer publicly. That's what it means.
What would happen if they would?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the clauses there are, but I would imagine fines at least. So, I mean, that's also something, So, even not turning up for media day, effectively, that just being IGL is their way of saying okay, we're not going to disrupt your media day completely, but there's you're not going to get us for the interviews, and that's always obviously the people who usually speak the most and all that. And that's it's still enough of a disruption for them to make their voices heard, Obviously, again, didn't work. Maybe if there was a walkout, that would have been actual walkout of the event, that would have been more effective. But that's not for me to decide.
Yeah.
But okay, what I was going to say with that, I derailed again to because of my anger about it, is because next year these deals are not going to happen anymore, or they shouldn't happen at least anymore. Valve are saying no business relations between teams and tournament organizations. Is players can say whatever the fuck they want about the events they attend, and it's not going to be controlling the communication that goes out of the event about the event. There have been times where Blast dropped the ball about certain things at the event, and they didn't get the flag that another TO would have gotten.
That the PGL got,
even
for
ESL.
sure.
I mean, ESL also catch it a lot. It's not even just PGL. That when something happens at the event, that just comes out, and that very rarely happens with Blast. And so, that's not something that they're going to be able to hide from next year. And this is it is a big, as Rain said, it's kind of a big threat to Blast in the next year, in the next 2 years. For them, you have to be careful, otherwise you're gonna cause us to just not go to your events. There's plenty of choice now. It's not, Blast cannot just be okay, we have you locked in because we have deals with your orgs. Of course, some of these orgs will still kind of have a lot of incentives to stick with one TO because of the frequent flyer program that Blast have, or whatever ESL is going to end up having. I'm sure it's going to be some similar scheme like that that's going to allow them to incentivize teams to keep going to their events. So that's still going to exist in some way, but at least there's going to be a way for players or for teams to communicate about the issues that are at the event, and even possibly publicly if something gets bad enough.
Indeed. Agreed, Striker. Now, Prof, I was giving you a layup to talk about your distaste for Spirit. It felt like you were being very distasteful.
Bro, I thought we were going to a break and going to talk about s1mple next, but I realized we didn't even talk about half the teams of Blast, and maybe we don't have to.
We're going to talk about them probably in the IEM Rio storylines.
Yeah. Spirit, I had this one realization with Spirit. And this is the realization that they managed to fall in the same trap that the previous Cloud9 roster, the one with NAVI and Exile and Shiro, fell into. And this is this mental prison where they think they need to win everything all the time, and every time they don't, they just feel like they're the worst team in the world. Yes. Are you pot friending or lifting your...
I'm pot friending.
Also, who's ringing my doorbell? Someone's ringing my doorbell.
That's not me. No, I wasn't raising my hand. If I'm raising my hand, it'd be like this. I'd raise my hand like this.
Yes, you can go.
Yep. I didn't really have anything to add, but why do you think that's their mentality?
But because of the Zontix interview, for example, and also just the way they lose some of these games and the pressure they put them on themselves.
What did Zontix say in the interview?
The Zontix interview was the exit interview he did with James Banks. He said, we have mental models that are not compatible with championship winners. And first of all, I want to still give props, but because Spirit, at least, unlike Cloud9 recently and Virtus Pro,
interviews.
do not speak with anyone. So, people are talking shit about Zontix. I appreciate that he is at least doing something.
I
think
hated
this
whoever that
insight
said. I don't know if it was Blah or somebody said on Twitter. I'm sorry, Blah, if it wasn't you, but somebody said on Twitter, "Can Zotic stop giving the interviews?" I'm like, fuck no, like why?
Please don't.
Please don't.
No, but like they've got into this hole where they have like giga high expectations of themselves, and realistically, they have a guy who's their main star, who's a kid, literal small human being playing his first big tournaments. And yes, he performed insane, and he is still performing pretty good. But let's be real. Also, Zontic's on this team, rookie, 2 giga rookies. Why are they putting so much pressure on themselves that they literally, if they're not winning tournament, they're trash? This is literally what's coming out of these guys' mouths. They have like, until maybe like 2 events ago, they had like, I don't know, 5 series lost in the whole year. They were super good. So I think they kind of fucked themselves somehow. And between the IGL, the coach, the psych staff, whatever you wanna, the mental coach, I feel like they dropped the ball a bit.
Okay, interesting. All right. I like the angle. I think it's an interesting angle because there's obviously something not functioning, maybe too high expectations all the time. But how do you feel that them skipping Rio will affect them going into the tail end of the year?
I mean, maybe it is a good thing in terms of, that it would just been the ball would have kept rolling in this direction. Their next one after that is World Final, I guess. Is that right?
I believe so.
Because they won this, they are there actually, right? Yeah, they are there. So that gives them another month to get down to business and figure out what's going on with the team. So I feel like I don't think being in Rio would have helped them in any way, because it's been a few events now where we've seen the same from Spirit, where they are just giving out against the best teams. They're just destroying all the. I mean, I don't want to say bad teams, because they even lost to some of them in EPL, and them barely made it. But they've just consistently not showed up against the best teams, and that's something that probably wouldn't have changed within a week from between the fall final and Rio. So maybe it is good that they have a little bit more time, because that gives them some space to, because from after the world final, it's just going to be pretty much straight into Europe RMR, into the whole major situation. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I wanted to add one more thing about like this whole pressure thing. I don't remember which game it was. I think it was Astralis game maybe. But or what did they lost to Liquid? I think there's a few of these FaZe cams from Spirit coming out from this tournament, where you see Donk like clutching his head for like 60 seconds in a row because they're going to lose the game or they're going to lose a round or something. Shiro also like completely freaking out in some of these games because they're playing badly. It's like, what the fuck is happening here? Like, why is this the level of stress these guys are under? It doesn't really, this is not you playing a major qualifier and going out like when it happened with Cloud9, when Shiro's like losing his shit. I understood that because that is a moment where like you have to get to the major. Like this is a huge underperformance, but them losing at Blast to some team, any team that is there, is really not the end of the world. So I think this is why I'm saying like they have something going on where they need to kind of figure out what is important, what is not important, and what they can actually allow themselves. Because if a team like FaZe can, not do anything for 6 months and then still make insane comebacks against Liquid, make now semifinals, almost beat NAVI, you need to give yourself a bit of leeway to fuck up sometimes. There's also not been a single fucking team that has won back-to-back tournaments. You have like almost as good of a chance to be the team of the year as anyone else does at this point by like just winning the major, essentially. So like it's not that bad, realistically.
I see what you're saying, but that conversation could be the same for a lot of teams, couldn't it? Like you could make that same conversation. Like the FaZe is the next little topic we have right now.
But which other team do you see like, I don't know, like being
other
so
than
down?
Apex?
Yeah, but
you get that from Apex regardless. I guess the energy being lower on certain teams, like you can see like it starts to get a bit flat and stressy in quite a few of the teams, but maybe not to the same regard. And to be honest, it's not like I've been sitting there looking for it. And I'm sure if we contrasted that to the events from the start of the year, I guess if you contrasted it to Kato, it'd be a completely different demeanor, right? Because they're obviously winning and not losing. But I guess that type of evidence, essentially, Prof, is playing into the yarn you're trying to peddle about them being, mentally maybe not in the right frame of mind for all of this, and they need to plan their peaks better. And not every tournament needs to have the same. Like, this is what we tried to talk about from our perspective. And when there's going to be even more events next year, you're going to have to try and balance that even more, right? Like, a good placement is going to be key next year, as opposed to like tournament wins. Tournament wins are great, obviously. But as long as you're getting key placements of the events that you do attend, you get qualified for the major. And the major is the pinnacle of the conversation. So again, this is where it's going to be very important for people at home to set expectations, for us on the shows and for the players themselves. Everyone's going to need to set expectations of what each and every event means. I guess that's also a big job of what we're saying. It's like the fall finals is a cool event because of the names that are there, and you get good matches. Like, it was entertaining Counter-Strike, but in the scheme of like the year, what does that event mean? Well, it's a nice little check to see the form of the teams before we go into the final stretch, really. Like, other than that, it doesn't really, like, the prestige, like they were playing on the angle of, oh, it's the last fall final. It was only there since like 2018 or something, right? Like 2017? No, but wasn't 2017?
That's
wasn't
quite
Pro Series?
That's quite a bit, yeah.
I mean, sure, yeah, of course. I mean, 2020 is the first premiere. But
Okay, so it's even less.
It was
So
Pro
it's only fucking 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? And it's essentially like, it's exhibition matches. I know they opened up a couple of extra slots at the start of the year, and they have like a really convoluted way that you could possibly get in through an online qualification. But otherwise, it's just like, exhibition matches.
The LAN tournament in Copenhagen it's a good tournament. It's a good tournament. It's good. It's not bad, but it's not the make or break of your season.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
that's very true.
I would say that what I do kind of like about the Blast events compared to others, when the teams are good, when it's not kind of like, a couple of teams looking it through groups and then another team looking it through showdown and then not really, making the final product anything good. But like this case, for example,
it was great.
Like the top 4 was very strong, and even the extended top 6, I think, like Liquid and
FaZe.
Spirit would have been in this case. Spirit would have been in this case, I guess. Then those actually made it a really good competition, and every time those teams faced, like, it was really nice CS, and you could tell that people were really into it because it's all the big teams. I mean, we got, as I said before, all the big 4 plus Spirit plus Liquid, that are also very popular teams. So like, it makes for, there's no bullshit matches, obviously, Astralis aside. The first one that they played against Vitality, like, all of those matches were competitive. Everything was really nice. There's no like massive, underdog playing against the number 1 team in the world in the first round and all that stuff. So it's kind of like, it's almost like you just get straight into the good matches, without kind of the extras that you get in the 16-team event sometimes, where it's like a qualifier from a fairly small region, that's there. Of course, it's good for that region that they get that chance, but it's like a lot of the time they will not be competitive, and it's just going to be kind of like a match that you don't really want to watch.
This is what I tried to talk about before. If we could have like these 8 teams, for example, and we could guarantee, who would you change out of these teams? Maybe you'd get rid of Astralis and put in Mouse, and you get rid of Falcons, and you'd put in, who else would you put in other than that? You could make an argument for a couple of, it's just sorry, I thought, fuck that. You could make an argument for, let's say Eternal Fire or whatever, but you could make an argument for a couple teams. But if like we had those 8 teams, and we knew that when we had events with those 8 teams and they were partnered, we were going to get quality Counter-Strike, that'd be great. Yeah. But what we saw with like teams like NIP, for example, is that they couldn't keep that quality, and that's the problem. Like, I think it's very fortunate that right now the teams that were there are all the teams that should be there, and there was no fuckery, like you were saying, like through the groups or whatever. Like, that's what you want to see. You want to see, if you have a partnered league and you have the best tems, you want the best teams to be there. And
I mean, that's why
that's what was delivered.
That's why also, I mean, it ended up being, I think, the most watched Blast Premier event I saw on ES charts.
It's hit like over 800,000,
almost 900k peak, which is, I mean, for a non-major event or non-Katowice, non-Cologne, that's very solid. That's really high. I think that was in the final, and I mean, that's NAVI G2. Like, those teams, if it was NAVI FaZe, NAVI G2, maybe even NAVI Vitality, like, whenever those teams are involved, you're going to get the big numbers, and the final ended up being good. Like, there were big moments there, so like people were interested. So that it was a good event to watch. Like I never felt like I was bored.
It was
throughout the
it's
whole thing.
entertaining Counter-Strike.
Yeah,
and
for
that
sure.
that right there should be the only thing that really matters, you know. But it's hard to always get that.
Yeah, I will say one thing about the whole Spirit situation, maybe just to round it out, is like I'm getting slightly concerned about Donk, and that's because while he can keep up the same crazy performances against some of the worst teams, and often there will be even a top 10 team, you know, top 20 team, like not like, you know, a wild card where he broke the record and stuff like that, you know. Like he can keep up massive performances, but he's had a lot of disappearances against the best teams now. And I was looking through the stats just to see like the difference for when he plays against the top 5, top 10 nowadays. And it's like in the new season in the last 3 months, it's 110 against top 10, 104 against top 5. So that's 17 maps and 9 maps. So I don't know, 5, like let's say 6 and 3 series. So not like it's not like a massive sample size or anything. But if you look at the whole beginning of the year, he very rarely had those disappearances even against the best teams, you know, whenever he played NAVI, FaZe, G2, whatever. Like G2 seems to be the bane of his existence at the moment, because I don't think he's had a good game against them apart from the one that m0NESY didn't play back at the spring final. So like it seems like Donk's lost the steam at the moment, and I'm hoping that he gains it back up, because otherwise we're going to end up in a situation where we're just going to be, yeah, but Donk only had those first 6 months, you know, where we had anything to, where he was the best player, but then he just like, he didn't really do it justice in the second part of the year. So I'm hoping we see the old Donk again when it comes to playing against the best teams, because I mean, what he was doing in the first half of the year was obviously insane. And for them to just disappear like this, I don't know if it's like a chicken or the egg situation, where I don't know if it's because it's Spirit is shit against these teams that Donk is not performing, because there's also like situations like that Dust 2 against was it NAVI, where they were just like executing B every single, or like walking out B every single round on T side, and you're just not giving Donk any space to actually work with, you know. And so part of it is
went to the jail and bit and died every time.
Exactly. No, so like from that, I'm sure it's partly because maybe they're struggling to figure out how to approach these teams, and Donk is maybe not, like they're changing something that Donk isn't as comfortable, or is obviously not as confident, you know, when they're facing off against these teams, you know, because before he would just run around and kill people all the time. So yeah, just something to keep an eye on for sure for the next couple of months as the year dwindles down, because it's definitely a concern at the moment.
Okay. Let's just quickly do FaZe and then we'll go to a break. So FaZe have reeled us all back in. Just as hope was dying, we were waving goodbye. We were singing the songs of FaZe from once upon
Kerrigan
a time.
retiring.
You know,
Brokey also retiring.
Rain having his 3rd kid or something. Like it would have, you know, we saw it all happening. And then they give us another bunch of competitive, exciting series. Obviously, the last map against NAVI, not a good look. But everything else, I think, was losing out to Falcons, not a good look. But, you know, being competitive in the other 2 games, like they owned Liquid, right?
Yeah.
And then G2, they dropped the map, is good news for FaZe against the elite level teams. I think that's the thing. They're always in like, they're a team who's always in like striking distance, or like you feel like they're always in striking distance, but they kind of just need to wake up with the correct mojo.
Yeah.
But how do we
like
quantify that?
Yeah, they are, even before, you know, even when people were saying like, okay, even we were saying, I mean, they need changes and whatever, like they were far off beating all these top teams. Like they were always quite close. They took a map off, maybe another close map on the decider, stuff like that. You know, it was relatively small margins that they were missing, but they were missing them all the time. Like they were just not really hitting it at any point against these teams, you know. And suddenly they have Brokey putting up this performance, which is like his best in like 6 months or something, and that seemed to be like a big catalyst for them and this run, because realistically, I mean, they didn't look that great against Falcons, and it was him that pulled them out of it. And then, you know, against NAVI, he put them in the situation where they could have beat them, and then they kind of threw it away on Ancient on that T side. So it was, you can still see that they are very reliant on these players, and if they don't turn up, that's going to be a problem. So I don't know if it's a massive step up. It was definitely a good thing to see, especially in the Liquid series where it was so convincing. Outside of that, you know, there were still some of those same issues. You know, if you don't have guys popping off, like you probably lose those series. Like one guy popping off crazy, like you're going to lose that series. So still not out of the woods. Just a decent sign, especially for Brokey, because I was kind of missing him turning up in this kind of form fashion.
You think this is fake news, Prof? What do you think of this?
I was just looking at Brokey because, like you said, best event in 6 months. Actually, best event in the last 12 months. Literally his best event, which is cool, I guess, because he wasn't really that great in the last few. It's
Pretty cool, I guess.
It's pretty cool, I guess. So Brokey is also one of these players that's just like, what can you even say about like how he plays the game and when he plays good and when he plays bad? It's like such a contrast. It is a big contrast. But overall, pretty nice. I didn't really giga focus on FaZe throughout this event, but it's nice to see that they still have that X factor to turn on sometimes.
I enjoyed the protest and the grand final. That was pretty good.
Yeah,
I can't believe we'll talk about Liquid more in a minute. All right, Lucas, let's go to an ad break. Let's come back. Let's do some Skinionaire.
The world is changing quickly. Shut up.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
SkinPlace launching an event with a total prize pool of $10,000 in honor of our first anniversary. Just sell skins, claim daily bonuses, complete missions, visit the shop, and participate in the main giveaway with popular skins and a powerful PC. Follow our social media to not miss.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph, and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.
Patty's muted.
Hello.
There we
We're
go.
back from the break. Thanks for sticking with us. We're about to get into Skinionaire. If it's your first time here and you'd like to be in the raffle for a skin potentially, type skin place in chat right now. I repeat, type skin place in chat right now. Skinionaire, 5 questions, multiple choice. We've got new tech. It used to just be 3 answers. Now anything's fucking possible. We're about to find out more. Is it me again, or are we making Striker do it? What's happening?
I think I'm doing it this time. I don't know the questions. Dimitri made them, so I'm like, I might as well do it.
Okay. Where's the new tech again, Lucas? I promise I'll bookmark it. I didn't bookmark the last one, but I'll bookmark this one. I promise. All right. So yeah, get the skin place in chat. Everyone's spamming it out right now. So okay, I just had a brain freeze for a second. So Dimitri wrote these, and Prof, you're the one who's going to be doing the answering. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's get this underway. Who wants to be a Skinionaire? Brought to you by Skin Place. Question number 1. How many trophies does s1mple have on his HLTV profile from the time when he was not in NAVI? Jesus, none or 1? How many trophies does s1mple have on his HLTV profile from the time when he was not in NAVI?
What would he have? From Flipside, from Liquid?
Hellraisers? Did Hellraisers win anything?
Hellraisers.
And this would be on his profile, so something.
I don't think
that's an
there's
MVP
anything.
event.
I don't think there's anything. Fuck, I'm gonna go for none.
All right, gonna be
The
looking
hide
in
chat
none.
also, so I don't see anything.
And the correct answer is
It is none.
None. Okay.
damn. My shit doesn't go. Still doesn't go green, Lucas. You said you'd make it go green.
I'm also yeah confused. I was like, did I do the right thing? Okay.
All right, 1 from 1. Question number 2. To this day, what was the lowest top 20 entry s1mple had in his career? Was it number 4, number 7, or number 8?
I think it was number 8 last year, no? Or was it number 7?
I can tell you what it was last year. I don't know which ones. If he had the other one though.
What was last year? 7?
7.
Ah, fuck.
At least I think. I hope it was 7. Pretty sure.
But one of the first years, he would have probably been somewhere around that.
He was. I want to say he was 6 in that first year he made it, but I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna use this info from you that wasn't number 8 last year, and I'm gonna just go for the odds that number 7 was his lowest.
All right, locking in B7, and the correct answer is.
Oh, if you trolled me,
The correct answer is 8. I repeat, the correct answer was 8.
But it was
that is true. Number
year.
17, 2017. He was number 8.
Okay.
Well, second year, not first year, he made it actually.
We can salvage this. We can still get 4 out of 5, Prof. I believe in you. Can still get a $15 skin.
I almost
50
like
off the table.
mistakenly got the right answer, but I didn't. Okay, let's go.
Question number 3. What year did s1mple win most MVPs? 2018, 2021, or 2018 and 2021 is tied?
Okay, 2018 is when Device won like 6 or something, so it's not 2018. And that was when s1mple was still number 1, but Astralis won everything. And I think he won like 4 that year. And 2021, NAVI won more tournaments. It has to be 2021 because he has 21 MVPs in total. And I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm gonna lock in 2021.
All right, locking in 2021. Correct answer is 2021. All right, 2 out of 3.
What's the number? Let me see. Actually, I'm not gonna go. Maybe I see a spoiler for some other question.
Question number 4. According to esportsearnings.com, a highly credible source, is s1mple the highest earning CSGO player to never play for Astralis? Yes, or 3 more players are ahead?
What is this like? That's such a specific number, man. 3 more players. But it could be a core of some team, no?
So who would it be? It would have to be maybe like FaZe players. Because like no other NAVI player is gonna have more than him. Like obviously they all went up pretty high. Like Bit,
be like I guess not the liquid one. It's I mean that's
a Bit could be Bit won the major after, you know, and he has the Grand Slam as well.
But like 3 more. Kind of crazy, huh?
I don't know.
5 seconds.
Let's go yes. I can't really think of.
Locking in yes. The correct answer is.
Okay.
This is just these are questions are crazy, man.
Those are tough.
3 more players are ahead.
All right, question number 5. Final question. For which team did s1mple play after leaving Flipside? Hellraisers, Liquid, or NAVI?
Flipside to Hellraisers.
Think about the relationship with HooXi.
Liquid, not to NAVI for sure.
You think Liquid?
I'm trying to 2014 he was an HR.
Yeah. I wonder I also wonder if he went HR
and then Flipside
HR.
with electronic and then Liquid. So Liquid. Yeah.
Locking in B. Liquid. Correct answer is
what?
He went HR. I was thinking whether he went HR, Flipside HR.
Did he go back?
I don't know, but I was thinking about that.
He must have. Well, was he only standing in for them initially?
No, he went Flipside, Hellraisers, Flipside, Hellraisers. He was there for a year after Flipside even.
Bro.
Well, Dimitri's really done you in here, hasn't he?
And he was there for like 2 months.
No, the first time. After that, he was there a year.
No, he was Hellraisers.
September to November. Sorry, yeah, I'm blind.
This is such a bait. You've
been done in here.
I've been done in so bad.
You've been done in. There's nothing you can really do about that.
He joined September, left November.
Yeah.
It's not even really a team, is it? All right, we're going to draw a winner. The winner is KLVH. You did a great job of typing skin place in chat, and Prof getting 3 out of 5 correct means you're going to get a skin valued to the total of $7.50. Try not to spend it all in the same
there's
shop.
been some delay on like acquiring skins. So for like this and for fantasy as well, there's been like a bit of a delay there. Just so people know, it's going to take maybe a bit, but we should have it sorted quite soon. Just saying.
Okay. All right. Delay on freebies, but they will be coming.
Yes.
That's the news from the man. Now, what we can take away from that Skinionaire, brought to you by Skin Place, is that was all Simple themed. And, well, Simple has kind of been off our radars. He hasn't really. He's always been in the conversation since he hasn't been playing competitively. His last team was with NAVI, which obviously was overtaken with Wonderful coming in. Since then, NAVI have had success. He did a short stint, like a one-match stand-in for Falcons earlier in the year. Was that when he played in BLAST?
Yeah, that was Showdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only real stuff we've seen from Simple other than Face It. And maybe some like charity tournaments or whatever that would be going around. He's still been in the conversation. He did his Play Like Simple thing, which went terribly from what I can tell. Doesn't seem like that landed on his feet. But the recent news regarding Simple is he's been loaned to Falcons for 3 months in replacing SunPayus on the team. So this is a very curious one. Things obviously haven't been going very well for Falcons at all. There's obviously the news with NiKo joining Falcons next year. So it kind of makes this Simple news even more interesting. But what do we expect of this? Because like it's a big play to a big org, like one that could afford the money, like that it would cost to get
Seems
something
like the
Simple.
only org that it could afford the money, to be honest.
But what's the payoff going to be here, right? Like there's a lot of questions about Simple. I think like Moses is someone who has said to me a couple of times on Talking Counter that he doesn't think he'll ever return to top form. I kind of like Simple in our game is like, you did a Formula One reference before, Striker. Maybe people will be a little bit more familiar with like a basketball reference, like Michael Jordan. It's like always the best reference for people roughly my age as a boomer. Michael Jordan was kind of the guy, and
I mean, for the 1% of those that are watching this podcast, or
But he also went away and then came back.
Exactly.
So
and the thing is, Simple
he tried
didn't go
to do some other thing like golfing or baseball.
Tried to do baseball because his dad was really into baseball. Wanted him to be a baseball player,
Right.
so he went and did professional baseball. But yeah, Simple has taken a brief hiatus. Now, obviously, we're in a new game with a new engine, and we haven't seen him play in all this time. And the short stint that he had in Falcons wasn't a good one. People questioning, is he going to be at that same type of form as the game kind of moved past him? But I've kind of stayed out of those conversations because we're experiencing it now. Like we're still living in it. He hasn't retired.
We're still living in his world.
Well, yeah, we are. Like until the story is over, we don't know where it's going to go. And the player that's been, number one in the world as many times as he has, as influential as he has in World Counter-Strike, just as a figure, obviously that's backed up by his playing, can be a bit of a divisive personality, being quite an aggressive type guy with the way that he, the way that the teams in the past with Liquid, etc. The story of Simple has its next chapter, I suppose. So what are our expectations with this? Because for him to go to an already sinking ship feels like it's only a bad thing for his name, but maybe a good thing to get him back in the server. So I don't know. I haven't put too much thought into all of it.
I would say that from what you're saying, I think it can only... Well, it's not like it can only be a good thing, but it's more like because nobody else will get him out of it, considering I think he has at least another year on his contract, if not 2, I can't remember now, with Navi, that like he needs somebody to give him this chance, because nobody else, like if nobody does, he will just never get the opportunity to come back. And when he does, it's probably going to be too late. I don't know, he's missed out on 2 years or 3 years of CS2 experience, and clearly he wasn't particularly motivated to play, possibly because of lack of offers, because of, maybe his like for the game or dislike for the game for a while and all that. So for him to get a chance to show himself again is a massive step already, because I thought that was the biggest hurdle for him always, for anybody to even get him out in time before he just is basically forgotten or just hasn't played for such a long time that he's just not going to be good enough. It's still that concern, of course, after now more than a year of CS2. Like it's been what, it was the 1 year anniversary like a week ago or something, right? Since he left NAVI, or since he was benched in NAVI, or since he last played in the EPL or whatever. So that's already of course it's a concern, and if he doesn't turn up at all, then that's going to be even worse, because then people have confirmation that he doesn't have it anymore, and he's not worth trying to put that money forward. So like the fact that he will get that chance is a good thing in the first place, and we can only hope that he's not going to be bad, because if he is, that's terrible.
It's a good thing for him, and it's a good thing for like Counter-Strike in general.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's a good thing for Falcons, to be honest. This kind of the tweet that I put out, and I'm trying to figure out the angle at which from which this is an improvement for Falcons for this year. I'm pretty sure it's not. Like, I don't think I'm not convinced that this is going to improve Falcons by the end of the year. So this is how I see it, for the reasons of simply there's a guy that hasn't played professional Counter-Strike since CS2 came out. And as much as like I respect s1mple as a player, as everyone else does and should, that's a huge gap to overcome. And also, as you said, like he hasn't, for the most of that time, he hasn't been playing like FaZe or anything. Like he hasn't been interested in the game. The question is like how much he has been watching, or there's a huge gap for him to overcome. And also he has forever, since we know s1mple, been playing forever. Like he has always playing. So going away from that approach that he had for a year is very questionable how he will come back. And if he has the, like, my biggest thing is like, does he even have the motivation to do it the way he did it before? That's my fear with s1mple, because he's been out of the grind for so long and has, for the most of that time, not shown the interest to come back, in my opinion. So I have my doubts about it from that point of view. I think he'll still be, I'm not saying he'll be a failure, but SunPayus was pretty good. You know, the bar is not set low with what SunPayus was offering for Falcons.
I suppose it like depends on how long term we feel this conversation is, right? Because if this conversation is part of Falcons' moves next year, so s1mple gets on loan, he gets to play out the rest of the year with this team, can slowly work his way back into CS2. We get to play top events because he's with Falcons. How many events would they even get an opportunity to play at?
They're in Thunderpick, the Challenger Katowice, and then Marmar. So potentially the major after.
So like, yeah, interesting. So it's not, they won't be in Rio, they won't be in the World Finals. So it is a good like lead up though, if you think about it. I mean, Thunderpick, yeah, it has some good teams, but it is like the best team at the moment. There's top 10. It's online, you know, it's not like there's not going to be huge expectations on him, even if like people obviously, it will garner a lot of attention because it's s1mple playing his first games in a long time. That part is online.
I just realized we need to send someone to Katowice.
Yeah.
I am going there. I literally already made that decision. So at least
you and Maku are pretty close.
We might go there just for a day or something, but we're probably not going to do the whole thing. But hopefully, hopefully we're going to be able to do stuff.
Yeah, so the future thoughts of this is more interesting for me than the short term. I don't think they'll be better in the short term, and whether or not that, like, I don't think adding s1mple to the team in World Counter-Strike the way it is right now will immediately make them better. Like, he needs to warm back into the game. Big changes have to happen within that team regardless, right? So if NiKo is going there next year, and s1mple is on the cards as well, because is this just a short-term thing? Are they just using to get, like, is this good for both parties? They get to bring in the s1mple name for a couple of months. He gets to warm back into the game and then see what's available going into 2025. So it could work both ways, or they could be interested in getting him more permanently. But then if they're going to do that, then doesn't that put a dampener on this whole, like, maybe NiKo and m0NESY going to Falcons kind of a move? That's just like a fantasy of mine. It's not actually something that I ever thought was real. But, you know, you'd like NiKo and m0NESY to stay together. And I personally hope the Falcons just do a complete revamp. Like, Magisk is the only player they should keep in my mind. We've probably had this discussion before, but that's what I'm more interested in. The short term, it'd be cool to see s1mple back in the server. But what I think he can offer, I don't think he has a world-class team around him that'd be good enough to win trophies.
I mean, their problem always was that they don't really have a star at the moment, and SunPayus was obviously under-delivering, even though like it's not like he was bad. He was still the best rated player of the team, right? But it's not like he was the SunPayus that we knew had those peaks in the end's time. So I think they're still like, I don't, same as Prof. It's not like I expect him to match up to that same level, especially early on. But he does have the flair, you know. He does have kind of, they have been missing a playmaker. They have been missing somebody who will take the risk and all that, which I think SunPayus hasn't been doing so much. So maybe it's something that will create some sort of a spark, you know. But it's kind of like I'm grasping at straws at like where that's going to do enough, you know, because it's not like we realistically cannot expect the s1mple that we saw even end of CSGO, you know, which wasn't his absolute peak level, you know, that we've seen in the game. So even with him being on like a SunPayus level, I also don't see how that's going to do anything to improve Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, I only see this as essentially like a trial for s1mple from Falcons.
Could you imagine a team with s1mple and NiKo in it?
I can, yeah.
You can really?
You can't imagine how it's gonna go.
But wasn't this also? I'm getting some like flashback. Wasn't this? Didn't NAVI like ask for NiKo before?
Yeah, I think so.
When they were going international, right?
I think there was that line, yeah.
That would be kind of crazy that happens now. I don't think it's impossible, obviously. I mean, that is the best case scenario for Falcons now. Like this is what they're hoping would happen, no? But even with that, just to finish the thought, the question is, I mean, does money even matter? I wanted to say like s1mple coming in and proving that is good is just going to make it more expensive for them to get him from NAVI, because this is just like a loan.
I think NAVI would let him go for something reasonable, though, don't you? Like considering their relationship,
especially considering, I mean, he's probably has also a big contract, so it's not like NAVI are just like keeping him on the bench on 50%. I imagine s1mple is not getting 50% because he's getting benched. I would imagine, I don't know, you know, maybe he has a shit deal. Who knows? But like usually when you have these sort of players on your contract, you kind of want to get them out, but at the same time, it cannot be for just the change, because you know the kind of brand power he has. That alone, you know, makes him have huge value for your team. So it's I would say NAVI will be incentivized to let him go. Unless he like turns up in such a form where they would be like, fuck, we need this guy back, you know, like we can.
Yeah, I think overall, if we just step back from this news, it's exciting to have s1mple back in the server, right? But what he's going to be able to deliver with the team he's in is questionable, and what type of form is he going to be in? So it's like, great. I think overall it's a net positive, but for me, it's obviously more of a long term.
Yeah, I mean, like Prof's line where it's just good for Counter-Strike, it's good for s1mple, and I think that means it's good overall.
But as you said, if he does turn out good on this loan period, why wouldn't they want him back instead of Wonderful, for example? Like, why?
Who, NAVI?
I mean, the first place. Yeah. I mean, why they replaced him in the first place wasn't necessarily performance, right? So
this is true, but maybe things change, you know?
Yeah, can be.
Probably not with this case, though.
But I don't know. Like with all the, especially considering their current form and like NAVI being like in a good place at the moment without s1mple, and probably better than they were in the end of the s1mple period, you know. So and especially like, I mean, Imez also improved shitloads, and they do have enough star power now, contrary to what we thought like 6 months ago. So I don't know if they will be incentivized to throw it all up in the air, you know, unless they just bomb out of the rest of the year.
Would be, I mean, this is like giga hypotheticals, because the first hypothetical is like s1mple comes in and plays very good in Falcons.
Yeah.
And Wonderful is on the same level as it is now. And NAVI maybe don't do that well to end the year. So these are all the things that would have to
variables for sure, yeah.
That would have to work. But then if this is the case, also s1mple coming back would maybe have higher respect for all the players on the team, and also for the system and Alexi, because obviously they did quite well without him. They won a fucking major. So, you know, that there's a lot of things that are variables that would, you know, it's not just as simple as s1mple that we know from a year ago joining NAVI that was a year ago. All of these things are quite different to what they were.
Definitely. All right. Do we have anything else we want to say regarding s1mple Falcons?
I mean, just to talk about the Falcons side, like if this would go through and let's say he does end up in Falcons with NiKo, Mage's Zonic coach, I do think like the snappy IGL doesn't really make any sense. Obviously, there's been these rumors, and now like it does look almost ridiculous. There are just like random names coming out every day. It's like, okay, why are we doing this thing again? Now everyone is joining Falcons. Like my mom is joining Falcons to be the like cook for the.
I mean, this whole rumor that came out about Apex. I mean, anybody who would look at that and consider Apex, NiKo, and s1mple in the same team would just be like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like that's not. There's no way that is true. You know, that's the first red flag that comes in your mind. And I mean, since then, even Falcons addressed it now with like their little meme, like delusional thing. So Vitali addressed it like with like ha ha ha. So that's, and as I said, like behind the scenes, I also heard it's bullshit. So that's. Who knows what's going to happen with Falcons next year, but it sure as hell doesn't seem to be that.
Okay. All right. Well, this is another wait and see. What are the odds to do with Falcons, Prof?
It's to do with s1mple.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. Let's get into what are the odds, brought to you, lovely people at home, by 1xBet. Now, over the social medias, X and Instagram, we'll run polls regarding these questions. You guys can vote yes or no. And the question this week for what are the odds? s1mple will have a higher rating than SunPayus in 2024. Fucking hell. Well, he has less events to be able, like if he plays all of the events well, he has a smaller sample size. Yeah. So in theory, it's possible.
To put it into context, SunPayus's average for 24 is 113, which isn't insane. Like it's not an insane expectation. But
okay, I'm just going to jump in here.
Yeah.
Now,
are we just to? I didn't write it down. Do we mean online, offline, just LAN? Just LAN?
Just in general.
We could do. I mean,
let's go overall.
Let's go overall. I think overall is fine. I mean, SunPayus is the same. SunPayus is the same effectively. He's like 112 a line, 120.
Let's do overall. Just we have like a higher sample size of matches, and we also include that one game against Metasport. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's cool. So I'm gonna be a believer. You know, I'm a curmudgeon 95% of the time. Because that's what I am. But, you know, sometimes we have to have some faith. And things aren't going to be easy, Prof. No one ever said they were going to be easy. No one ever said he was going to have the best of times. But he's going to go out there and going to give it his absolute all. That's what s1mple is going to do. He's going to put on that jersey and he's going to go out there and he's going to give it his best. So I'm going to say that there is 67% chance that s1mple will have a higher rating than SunPayus in 2024.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Respectable. I will go for 45%.
See you being a bit more realistic.
Even though I'm not realistic, just pessimistic. I think the fucked up part is he does like the ESL Challenger Katowice event. It's pretty shit teams, so that's a good opportunity to farm. But then
Falcons
again,
will be like the bottom.
But then
needed, so it's
there's
not like
so little opportunity, and this Falcons team, I have so little faith in that it's not going to be easy to farm rating anyway. Like even if he is like, okay form,
he's doubting the GOAT. Everybody,
I am doubting him on this little sample size.
He's doubting the GOAT.
I think I'm slightly skeptical. I still think he's going to have like a higher than a 105 rating, I'm pretty sure of that. But 113, I think 114 is needed for this to be true. I think it's rough. I think
he's doing it.
Does he just have to end up like above him in the list, because that's also includes, I think,
the
decimal points.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
So it could be 113 technically.
Let's go.
Downright 50% from Twitch.
This is insane. This is insane. Striker.
I'm gonna go. I'll go 35.
Whoa.
I'll go 35.
It's fine. That's fine, guys.
I think as much as, he doesn't have the biggest events in his, like in the first couple, like he could end up playing just 3 events if they don't make it to the major. So, I mean, that's considering he doesn't have that much time to get there. I don't really doubt that, like, with some time in a couple of months, he's going to improve, but I think the start might be rough. And I think that's just going to make it so much harder because then he will need to have a good finish and he will not have that much time for that. So I have a hard time believing that he will outperform a guy who has been playing CS2 this entire time and then comes into CS2 barely having played even casually the game, not liking it and all that he'll get up to that level fast enough.
Come on, s1mple. I believe in you, man. I'm the only one here. So everybody at home, here are your options. If you're going to vote for yes, have look, it's only a $4 variance, a €4 variance.
Yeah, I mean, we went straight down the middle.
So, I guess you never know who's going to be right, but we're going to be pretty damn close no matter who's right. That's what I can tell right here. So either option, yes or no. Vote with your heart, guys. Let that be the decider. Did any of these come to a... Last time Chad believed in device and lookout ended, yeah. Did we have any of those come to a close?
I don't think we had any new stuff concluding. There's a funny tweet, not funny tweet, but 1xBet talking about them did put out a special bet, predict the future of Bleed. I feel like they're copying our stuff.
Okay.
So for the end of the year, where there's a big picture of Kassad, it's so you can make your bet and the odds for where they're going to be at the end of the year: 60 plus place in HLTV ranking, 2.2, 50th to 60th, 2.27, 40th to 50th, 7.5, and top 30, 25.
Right now, they're 114th on yours.
So like 10, you put in 10 euros, 250 euros if Kassad's guys are top 30. So that's what's going on right now. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, but responsibly.
Fair enough. Yeah, definitely. All right. What's his aim performance chart? What have I missed?
Oh, did you not see that? Let me pull it up. It was on the WhatsApps. Here we go. Update of player aim performance from user SD000 on HLTV forums.
Wow.
Yes, he made
finally some good fucking content.
I don't know. Okay, it's not that bad when you zoom in, I think.
That's gonna be right.
Yeah, I can see it.
If you full screen it. So yeah, there's this this chart that was made that plots riflers on spotted accuracy. It's like a Leatify, or was it on Leatify? It is, and then headshot accuracy. And it's just an interesting little chart to see like which guys are just essentially the best aimers and the worst aimers. Chad, you're looking at it?
Yes.
To put this into a bit of context, there's the spotted accuracy means when like you've actually seen somebody on your screen, they're not just spamming smokes. Like it's kind of Leatify's way to eliminate the shots that you're taking when you're not actually seeing anybody.
I'm waiting for Lucas to bring this up. So it's gonna. I wanted to ask you, Chad, which players like stand out to you? What do you find interesting on this chart?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like necessarily leaping off the page of me or anything, but like Crimbo is pretty much what I expected. I think JKS being relatively high as far as the aim is concerned.
Where did you see JKS? I love how your brain just tracked him. And
he's below Tessus, next to Big Uzera.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, obviously, Body Shot Merchant Zontix. That's kind of hilarious.
But isn't that what we'd expect?
Yeah, it is. It is as you would expect, but it's still just funny to see that the chart, the stats, and the eye test match up on this. Malbs obviously as well. Like his aim is insane. Definitely, I think like eye test of Malbs' aim is better than NiKo's, but just you don't get he doesn't have that
As
many
many moments,
opportunity
yeah.
to show it. But whenever he does, it's like, damn, this is amazing. I think Donk being there, like kind of in the middle, pretty good. I think the Rops one actually surprised me, considering how he was playing this year, like not having that much impact. He seems to still like stand out in terms of the
Kind of makes sense with the way he plays the game, though.
Yeah, he has crazy crosshair placement, so I think that probably helps him a lot with this.
He's
Yeah,
like
Like,
less
it's-
adjusting.
Yeah,
but I think that's one thing where like his aim can still be good, but it doesn't really translate to all of the kills necessarily for different reasons,
What?
not just in his individual performance.
Look where Stown is.
And I think the Stown one is
that's
insane.
hilarious.
It's insane, actually.
What's he doing down there?
Stown
I mean,
is
it's never been such like some crazy aimer.
Yeah, but
whenever you watch him.
he's lower on the headshots than both Carrigan and Apex and Snappy.
he is in that with Muterus. He's in that area over there.
Like all the IGLs, more or less.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad for the star rifler of Astralis. I think
Especially
that's
how this guy called it bots/IT.
Yeah, right. Like, well, the other ones are IGLs, which means the Stown has to be categorized
He
as
is
a
a
bot
bot.
here.
I mean-
it can only be one of the two things.
I mean, also like Yuri and Flit being in that area as well.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't know why
Flit's
Flit's there.
down turn has been very rough. Yuri, you called him out a few times this year. We don't talk about them anymore, but he hasn't been really where he needed to be. I think he's still floating on that, Keserato and Yuri idea that they're good, when Keserato is in a completely different stratosphere from him and has been for the last year, even more. So yeah, it was an interesting little from the streets tidbit to look into and see some of the players that stand out, and also the headshot machines are there on the machine.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mzinho and Senzu
Senzu.
from Mongols.
Yeah,
I
nice
mean,
little
MZO is
look.
consistently high in headshots. For anybody who plays fantasy knows that.
All right, nice little look there. So from the streets, a couple of players for the streets with their aim by the looks of things. All right, let's turn our final attention to IEM Rio that is kicking off in a couple of days' time. It's in 5 days' time, on October 7th to October 13th. It is a 16-team event. There is teams NAVI, G2, Vitality, Mouse, missing... Who? Oh, Spirit. The ranking... Oh, they're fourth. Never mind. I can't count.
They're
Navi's
missing
one,
Spirit
yeah, missing Spirit.
Saw is the ninth.
Who?
Saw.
Oh,
Door.
okay.
Okay. So the 9Z is the highest ranked team at 21. So regardless, it's still a pretty stacked
The lowest
16-team
ranked
event.
team. You mean?
What did I say? The
You
highest
said
ranked
highest
team.
ranked team. Yeah.
Well, I guess
It's actually a
technically it's the
low-key-
highest number, but yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah,
the lowest ranked
low
team.
key,
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
stacked event. Like also the teams that are towards the bottom, Imperial 9Z, are pretty decent, to be honest, and also local to some degree, which is nice.
And they've been playing. They played pro league, so they had a lot of reps against these teams recently. So that's good for them.
I guess.
Imperial replaced Rare Adam, right? Because Rare Adam
Yeah.
was the team that had visa issues or something. So Imperial coming in. There's going to be a lot of Americans or South Americans in the lower bracket in Group A.
Yeah, but overall, I think the approach that we had last time with like the 3 storylines to watch, I think it was pretty nice. So we can just do that to wrap it up.
So let's just quickly break down the brackets for everybody. Navi, Imperial, Liquid Complexity, FaZe, Furia, Mouse, Pain, Vitality 9Z, Virtus Pro, Mongols, Eternal Fire, Astralis, G2, Heroic. So, damn, if I have to pick one storyline.
I mean, I can start if you
Yeah, go
want.
for it. Go for it.
I think for me, it's Eternal Fire, to see if they can still have the steam going for this event, because as you said earlier in the episode, EPL going to the final, challenging Navi in the grand final was pretty good. And before that, they had the other final in Dacha against Spirit. 2 very good results. Can they keep it up? Can WATO keep performing? I think he was like a huge. He had a huge uptick, especially at EPL. So seeing a bit more of that for me would be great. It's just like national teams. I'm not gonna use the Launders phrasing for anything, but I always have a sweet soft spot for
Soft spot.
national teams. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Eternal Fire, seeing if they can keep, and it's pretty reasonable in the group they're in. Like Vitality and G2 are the two strong names, but then after that, they have a very good chance against the rest of them. Even against Vitality, we've seen them beat. So, okay. Striker, do you have a storyline that's leaping off the page at you?
I mean, I kind of insinuated it earlier, and it's Navi's ability. Or it's very hard to say already. earlier. I can't say it still. And it's Navi's ability to keep making the finals. And I mean, I made the prediction before that I avoided the words earlier. That they would not. That I would be surprised if they made it to the final again. And I think it has a lot to do with kind of the run they've been on. We saw the same thing with FaZe. You know, that eventually it was too much to catch up on, and there was not enough time for them to spend between events, and they lost that final streak. It was actually a similar number, no? It was like 6 or even 7, was it, for FaZe at that time? But with how many times they got close to losing series or even lost the final, obviously, to G2 in a fairly convincing way, I feel that this is probably going to be the event where the streak breaks. It's not like I think they're not going to be competitive or anything like that. I think they're still going to be in the playoffs comfortably, especially if you look at, I mean, it's what Imperial, Liquid, Complexity in their path. I think out of that group, they're always going to make it in top 3 unless they somehow, you know, just get upset early, like in the first game or something, in the best of 1. Then I think they're still going to make it to the playoffs. But I think they've gotten close enough now against a lot of these top teams that. Even against Eternal Fire, that they might just lose one of those games in the playoffs this time around.
Okay. There's a couple here that are appearing out for me, and 2 of them are like more positive performances required. I think the question is about Mouse, you know, was like Pro League wasn't great. So I'm interested in seeing what we get out of them for the bounce back of Pro League, because they didn't even make the playoffs at Pro League. So I want to see how they kind of respond. And the same kind of conversation for Liquid, but the other way around. Like, this team is exciting, but we've seen some clear limitations, and the questions that need to start getting asked, that we're just 2 months away from the major, is can they overcome those limitations? So what did we get from them? We had Blast 4 groups, we had Cologne, they played an online qualifier for Rio, which they obviously qualified for. Pro League, they made it to the playoffs, but it was whatever. And the Blast finals was also whatever when they were eliminated. Like, they lost to G2 at Pro League, they got blown out, and they lost to FaZe and they got blown out as well, didn't they? Yeah, 13. So like, it's definitely a team to be excited about, but we need something like solid and a strong win, like a win when the chips are down and they have to come back or something like that, to just show that this team, you know, has like some maybe mental resilience, or they have the depth, because you can't be getting blown out. Like, I think that's one thing that FaZe getting blown out by NAVI, you got to avoid that. So Mao's bounce back, and some maybe more ironclad results for Liquid. That's what I'll be looking at. Cool. All right. Well, there's plenty of Counter-Strike going on. Today I woke up, there was like so many Brazilian games. I was like, what the fuck is that? ESL Challenger Atlanta is starting. That has Saw, FlyQuest, BetBoom, Rooster, Big, M80 Wildcard, and Otic. So some curious names going on over there. You guys can tune in and check all of that out. Alyssa
Bro, there's
Masters.
so much Brazilian Counter-Strike. What is happening? Oh, this is Challenger League, South America. Bro, so many games.
Yeah.
So many games. Okay.
So
Not really super excited about them, but there are games.
No, they're there. People like watching games. But yeah, I don't know what our plans are when Rio's on. We just do one when we get back. We're not doing one from Rio, are we?
Didn't plan anything. Yeah. You travel, I guess, on the weekend?
I leave on the 5th.
Yeah. I mean, the only opportunity would have been next Thursday, huh?
Yeah, I suppose. But that would be...
Is there an off day or something?
Yeah, that's an off day, but I guess you're going to have a media, right?
Usually, yeah. And then
I mean, we are a bit offset time-wise, so maybe there's a world, but I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Maybe we can do something without you and get a guest or something. Maybe that's a good opportunity. I didn't really think about next week, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we also have some time early in those days, so maybe there's a world we could do something on the playoffs days, because it's starting, I mean, 5 p.m. for Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday 7. even any of the group stage days, to be fair. I mean, without you at least, obviously.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be back on the Monday night, Tuesday morning or some shit. So
Yeah.
lovely long travel. All right, cool. Well, that's another episode of HLTV Confirmed. That was brought to you by Skin Plays and 1xBet. Gentlemen, is there anything else we want to talk about before we say goodnight?
Not really, to be
No.
honest. Been a good show.
Yeah.
Watch
All right.
this space.
Cool. Watch this space. All right. Well, something's coming out from Striker, everybody. Keep your eyes and ears peeled. Good night, everybody. We'll be back in probably a week and a half. Goodbye.
The world is changing quickly. Shut up.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. Skin Place. Sell items now.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph, and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.